Well, you're right, right, right. You're bloody well right. Am I live? Yeah, I guess I'm live. So one more day into the trenches with nothing happening other than you'll notice the pattern every single morning. The stock trades up by 10:30. They, they sell it off. And you're saying, oh, they know something. Oh, they understand there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. They're just skimming, picking your pocket. It's called high frequency trading, although in the over the counter market, it happens in slow motion, but it's the same concept. They're just picking your pocket, and you get nervous. You think, oh, the fundamentals. There's something wrong. There's nothing wrong. They don't study it. They do it across a dozen, 2 dozen, 5 dozen companies a day, and they only put a human eyeball on it when there's a nightmare, and there hasn't been a nightmare yet. I think a nightmare is coming. I think a nightmare is coming. But we see no evidence of that yet. Uh, so, it gives a chance to buy, but people like Eric, and I'm not picking on Eric, but he thinks this is a good time to be defensive. That is the exact opposite of what you should do right now. What Eric should do, if he wants to be defensive, he apparently has 150,000 shares. I don't know how much money he has in his speculative bucket, but he should, my judgment, if he has enough, buy 150,000 more. And when the stock goes to a proper starting point, which I think's roughly $1.5 billion, if as an example, maybe the stock goes to 8 or 10 or 12 by the end of the year. If he wants to be defensive, then sell half. Maybe wait till January so your tax obligation is in the following year. But that'd be the way I would do it if I had the money, but I don't. So it's easy to talk, but that is what I would do. I wouldn't sell. I wouldn't make the decision to be defensive in advance. I'd let the news come out, let the activity happen, and make my decisions as we go. All right. I got to sign in because my prices were on that machine, so I got to sign in here. I stayed up watching that game. I fell asleep a little bit, but I was rooting for Toronto. They got screwed in the first or second inning by the umpire. And bad base running. But also the coach took out all of the big boppers. So they just ran out of home run power. And then they had that last pitcher. He wasn't good, apparently. All right, so today's action on the 5 that show up. Of course, Railtown is in the red. They want you to think something's wrong. There's nothing wrong. My opinion with Railtown, we're just waiting for the attorneys. I don't believe the attorneys are going to do anything at all this week regarding the Railtown acquisition of AIP. And I think it will occur on Friday. I think it will occur on Friday. So the attorneys will fit in having one of their assistants fax or email a short filing to the Canadian SEC, maybe at midnight Friday, if they can get in early on Monday. But, they got other cases to work on. And they got something, and it might be, let's circle back Monday afternoon. So it might be Monday at midnight or Tuesday. So I would think the AIP deal, for purposes of our discussion, is taken off our, our concern list, either Friday at midnight, Monday at midnight, or Tuesday at midnight, that range. And then I think the company can start talking about revenues and deals, whatever you want to call them, enterprise sales agreements, if they have them. They can start talking about those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week, if they want to talk about them. Obviously, the priority the company should have is locking down revenues more than not talking about what they're going to do, just do it, and then explain it later on. But I think things are going to start accelerating for Railtown. To the extent there's any buyers out there who were waiting for the AIP news, what was announced or filed October 6th, I don't know what day it was announced, that was really kind of a LOI, a letter of intent. It wasn't the final hookup, the final marriage license. That'll come Friday. And that's when I think everything starts. So we understandably, we got our hopes up that early October announcement would get things going. But I really don't think it was a full, it wasn't a complete event. And so I think Friday marks the end of our long beginning, as Winston Churchill might say. So November's our month. Next week is our week. And the thing you can't understand, and I don't blame you, is these shorts. This is just a business for them. They sell stock that doesn't exist, and they cover it. They don't always cover it. Sometimes they hold it. Sometimes they get in trouble, but they do it across many stocks. And sometimes, like in the case of Railtown, they let retail buy it, I guess because I'm talking. They let retail buy it in the morning. It looks green. People start buying, and then they sell it off. And if they can make in Railtown 500, 1,000 a day, and they do it across 50 companies, and they split it with their Stevie Cohen type sponsor and they have to set some paybacks to some promotional people and some boo birds. They do that. They net out a hell of an income, and they don't even have to get undressed. I mean, it's pretty impressive, and it's all legal because of Bill Clinton. The selling of entitlements is legal because of Bill Clinton's administration. The electronic nature of our markets. I've been trying for 2 years to get a physical certificate in 2.5 years. I give up for long stretches. But that electronic nature, which allows them to turn our securities market into a fractional reserve securities custody system, I got to come up with a better name for it. That was all institutionalized around 2010, 11 under the Obama administration, but I don't think it required administrative action. It's just look the other way. No one knows what they're doing with the markets. So Obama split the banks into risk, and that risk, they took compliance with them, and then they took the trading, and those became the hedge funds. So that's the prime broker, and then the broker dealer, I guess, became banks. So Obama put it under the taxpayers. So all those big shots at Goldman Sachs and everywhere else, their gambling got them in trouble. Hey, but they don't have to pay the piper. Why should they pay? They got you guys as suckers. The taxpayer, me too. So anyway, that happened under Obama. And the looting just is on a grand scale. It can only happen while trillions of dollars are flooding the markets. And you have this hypothecation and rehypothecation and the derivatives. That was Bill Clinton. The Graham-Leach-Bliley Act. I have more guns than I need, but fewer guns than I want. That's a guy that went into politics so he could pull a bird, and he got one. I think they've made billions, probably hundreds of millions, off of government contracts, transportation. Unbelievable. You guys never grew up, if you're young, you never grew up with an honest government. My generation, even though the ones slightly older than I did, rebelled against everything. And they're the women of a certain age now going on the No Kings marches. They can't think consistently because they do everything by feelings. You know, they're upset that Billy Bush's tape came out where Trump said, you know, I forget what Trump said. If you're tall, blonde, good looking, he's not, I don't think. You know, you get the press, the movie cameras follow you, you're a billionaire. They let you, and you know the rest of it. But women of a certain age heard that he's a predator, which I don't think he is. But who knows? Yeah, who knows? So they vote because that disgusted them, and then we're left with nightmare. Anyway, so Railtown is down 0.6 of 1 cent, at 43 cents. Of course, they're going to keep it in the red. GDC's down 11 cents at 420. GDC did an interesting thing via Univest. They raised some money at roughly $2 and something a share. So what's going on? Don't know. I'm not in the loop. But if let's call it $1 billion worth of Bitcoin is in the company, and the company's currently trading for 250 million, which is unbelievable. They raised only $2 million, $3 million. But anyway, market cap is 250, $250 million. But if the Bitcoin's worth $1 billion, whoever put up that Bitcoin has, on paper, he or she is down $750 million. Are they just going to let that hang? Hey, no. We got it. We're going to make it run. It's gonna squeeze. You're going to be so rich. I wouldn't stand for that. I'd say, all right, maybe you're right. It's going to squeeze. But while we wait, why don't you give me some more shares? I'm down $750 million. Why don't you give me 1 billion shares or whatever at $4 or $2? You got to do it at $2. Look, when management does deals under the market, management is pricing the stock at that price. The market isn't. The deal they did was at $2.10. Every time I've ever watched anything, the stock goes down there. This might be different. This might be different because they didn't raise a lot. But just remember that management decided that their stock isn't worth 250 million. It's worth 1/8 of a billion. Whatever. It's all strategy. But if I were that guy with the Bitcoin and it's really at risk, I'd be pissed off. I'd say, the stocks, you just did a deal at 2. I'm down using the $2 price for a little buffer. I'm down 7/8 on my billion. I'm down almost $800 million. I want you to issue 500 million shares to me now, free to trade. And I want it done in a convertible where I have first claim on my own assets. I don't want a joint equity. I want a senior note that can convert into 500 million shares. I might ask for more. And I want it free to trade. And I want it now. Otherwise, I'm unwinding this deal. On the other hand, maybe the people with the coins are testing a theory with Univest that if we bring in coins and we do this treasury model, we have Univest, we have Singapore, Shanghai, Cayman Islands, Bahamas, and we've got a trading desk with hotshots that have algorithmic computers, flash computers, trading program computers that we can bribe them to turn them on the buy side, and they can flood the world with algorithmic trading that is ready to make the stock pop to the upside and confuse the shorts. I mean, this is hard to borrow. I assume the short position is still there. So the short computers are constantly selling, and it's like I don't know. It's like the IBM Blue and the NVIDIA Gold machines going at each other. And what they need is you to come in, to be unpredictable, to be human, and provide money. But if they can pay off a guy with a trading desk and computers to do it, and you're kind of like the STP to the engine. Well, if that guy can start gunning it and it can catch fire in the Twitter and the Reddits and around the world, all of a sudden there can be a meme stock type momentum. Well, then the computers on the buy side get more aggressive, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But the sell side computers it's not that they panic, but they have a discipline built in. And if you can get past that discipline point, they start buying the stock. And that's how you get the squeezes. And if you can find somebody or a group of people to put up $100 million, $50 million to trade with, just back and forth, back and forth. We need some cash to make our buy computers buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. Do it all over. Leave a buy order over with A.G. Edwards. Leave buy orders coming in from RBC. And we'll have a bunch of buy orders coming from Dane Rauscher, if that's not the same firm. And we'll have some anonymous. But we need your money there to do it, to back that up. But then as it goes up, we'll flash boy it. We'll sell. We'll be up, sell, sell. We're just trying to trigger a run. And so you need guys working together, which is illegal. You need an investment banker working with guys working together, which is illegal. You need to bribe a desk, a buy-side algorithmic computer, also illegal. And then you have to have a pool of money that's working in coordination with that computer and the group. That's also illegal. But I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I have no problem with it. The SEC doesn't regulate on the sell side. These guys sell stock that don't exist. They collude and collaborate. They sell stock. They're not going to deliver. They're not going to borrow. They lie. They cheat. It's all illegal. And they break the law every single day, stealing from you. So I have no problem that a group of logs and Univest are going to say, let's get these bastards. Because that's how you even it up in the market. When things get too lopsided in another way, it creates an opportunity on the other side. It's always been that way. If there's a trading system that works, somebody figures out, they get on the other side of that trading system. Well, what the shorts do is as illegal as it comes, as far as I'm concerned. Collectively, I don't know why the drug cartel guys didn't do this. They wouldn't be in prison. I don't know why P. Diddy and Epstein didn't do this. They wouldn't be where they are. But, I guess there's other reasons. So if you can do all of those ingredients and you can have a trigger, and, to me, the trigger in GDC would be that somehow they prove they actually have the Bitcoin. Obviously, nobody on the, these guys shorting it obviously don't believe the Bitcoin's there, or it can be quickly removed. They feel like it's a gimmick. But if you could actually prove up that Bitcoin being worth $1 billion, I don't know a sane billionaire that would give away 7/8 of their asset. So some stock no one's ever heard of has no assets, trading for $250 million, and the promise is it's going to squeeze. I like I started with, I don't know any billionaire that's going to just let that much money hang out the window. So the risk is GDC has a side letter that's going to dilute the hell out of the number of shares. That's a risk I see. But maybe they have a guy that says, no, 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 okay. Maybe it's a guy in China that just wants to get money out of China. Could be that. Could be a guy in North Korea that just wants to get money out of North Korea. Who the hell knows? But if they can put those pieces together, which is collusion on that side, that's why they stopped trading in QMMM, Treasury, Bitcoin and Treasury. Still hasn't started trading again. The SEC focuses on long manipulation. The SEC supports and condones short manipulation. Why? Because the short manipulation makes trillions of dollars for men that live in Geneva and Tel Aviv. Trillions. That's why. They control the government. They control the military. They control our president right now. By access. So GDC is interesting. If they can put those pieces together and they can convince the market that the Bitcoin's actually locked up in the company, that could be the trigger. And then that could cause a meme-like reaction around Wall Street or around, phones and one thing about Bitcoin and all these coins, the younger generation trades Bitcoin. They don't trade stocks. So it hits up on their news stories, and with their thumbs, they can enter trades. And if GDC started to run, you could get real momentum, and you could get a squeeze like HKD, which I've shown you. It basically gives you 1 or 2 days to make a decision. And if you're in early enough and you're professional, you just get out. And if it keeps going, you don't get back in. But if you get greedy and you don't get out, or you get scared and you get out too soon, it's a very unpleasant experience. It's very difficult to trade. But it'll be interesting. If GDC works, I would call your attention. That means you invest these whales kind of in the Hong Kong, Shanghai, Singapore space, and then offshore trading, let's call it good guy flash boys against bad guy flash boys. Nobody cares, by the way. It's all about making money. Nobody's your friend. Nobody's on your side. It's not a moral crusade. It's just about making money. But if they make it work in GDC, what would be intriguing to me is there's at least 4, maybe 5 companies, and my information is old. I'm not current. Nobody talks to me about it. But there's at least 4 or 5 companies this same group of wealthy guys already own stock in, and maybe if GDC works, they'll come around like Pac-Man or Mrs. Pac-Man, and they'll try to make each one of those 6 stocks go. So that would be a scenario that a billionaire would come into and say, well, let's see if we can prove it and make it work. And then we'll take that strategy and we'll do it over and over and over again. Then you could hook a billionaire. But on one stock, I don't think so. So what does that mean? I guess pay attention if GDC does do something radical. Maybe a G-Bucks, maybe a ZJYL, maybe a NIXX even, or maybe a MTEN. These kind of stocks that they're in already, maybe they'll start taking that formula around. But the 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 two cautions I have in the short run, the stock could go to $2 just because they did a financing at 2, but it was small, so maybe that'll just be a blip and it won't happen. But that's, to me, it's always a risk. Whenever big guys think they're getting a deal, I want to get the stock at half price. The market always adjusts for it. It's always short-sighted, but I've never been able to convince an investor not to ask for the discount, and after the fact they forget what I said. So it's just human nature. The other risk, I think, with GDC is the Bitcoin might be a gimmick in the sense that, yeah, I'm sure it's real. I'm sure it's real. But it might be a gimmick in a couple of ways. They, if it doesn't work, they can pull it out, or there's some sort of the second way would be some sort of side letter, basically, that allows a preferred stock issuance or massive issuance of stock to this group, whoever it is. So they control the company and they can make it up in the stock price. But by the way, that's not a bad, it'll be slower, but if the company's well run and has a strategy, they can, just like AME, they got that, or is it, the one with Cohen, they got the cash in the account up to $19 a share in that case. Maybe they could do that here by doing offerings and maybe doing trading, so it's not impossible for the company to create shareholder value over time. But chasing a short squeeze is if it's a full-time job, and you've got to get ready to pay a lot of attention and trade in the morning and get ready for the stock to go up and then get stalled like it did with Nixie twice. And I guess the final risk, and I got to move on from this story, is QMM. QMM ran, it halted at 101. It's a lot of profits. But if the SEC finds something wrong and reverses the trades or penalizes, you might not want to be near anything like that. And again, the SEC only goes after longs. They do not go after the shorts. If they catch a short, they work with an attorney with guitars, maybe. I have no idea for sure, but they settle with that attorney, and everybody walks away, and the short shareholders are stripped of wealth. And it all ends up in Frankfurt, Geneva, or Tel Aviv, and without paying taxes. And no one cares. No one cares. The reason no one cares is it's trillions of dollars. It's tax-free, and it's bigger than our government. It's bigger than our president, and nobody can stop it. The only thing that's going to stop it is if somebody, maybe China, creates an honest market, and we'll see. It's very tempting. It's corruption in China. It's very tempting if big money people come in and say, hey, you want to run an honest casino? We're not going to let you. And if you don't want to take care of our guys, you're not going to be around long, or your family won't. And so, the corruption can corrode any country. But anyway, I guess keep an eye on GDC. The setup is there. Univest, the offshore whales. Maybe it's an HKD. And it's interesting. I've told you many times, my opinion, the only thing that's going to make a squeeze work is if you have a surprise trigger. The Bitcoin here is not a surprise, but what might surprise the market is if a billionaire was actually willing to put $1 billion worth of Bitcoin at risk in an obscure company without taking anything back for it. And they audit it, or whatever they do. They have third-party eyeballs. I guess that's an audit. And it's there for real. That would shock. That would be your shock. That'd be your trigger. And then if you have a group of guys, good, for purposes of this movie, good guys, although they don't care about you. They're just trying to make money for themselves. Working together, which is strictly illegal. But hey, the other side has a group of guys working together, which is strictly illegal. But the SEC doesn't go after them. And so the opportunity is that these guys see, which is creative, get attorneys to paper it up, cause a spark, and make it happen. And these guys can get hoisted by their own petard because they are breaking the law and they're leveraged out the wazoo, and their computers can be used against them. You've seen it before. And I guess the comparison I would make is I think HKD was one that Univest did, or was it TOP? I can't remember. Anyway, let's move on to other stocks. MTN is down 63 cents at 374. I don't think you should be in any of these right now, but if Railtown became a significant position, maybe you put 50 grand aside or 5 grand aside and you play with these. But these are all gambling. They're all manipulated. But what intrigues me is if a group of dedicated whales wants to try a strategy to catch out the criminals with the help of an investment bank, and it works, well, you might have more than one trade that you can play in. But don't get greedy if you do it. I used to do a lot of what we called syndicate. And you learn after time just to take, sometimes you couldn't sell for 30 days, 45 days, but you're watching the stock. Other times they asked for the shares DVP. They're gone, and they're probably sold before the funding. So it's all very sophisticated. But I learned with my retail clients, I had some of those institutional clients too, but I just learned take the profit when it presents itself. There was one, I think it was called Kimco. I don't know where Kimco is today, but I got a lot of people in. I think we got out for $1 profit, or 75 cents, 25 cents, 50 cents. But we got our profit. I think it was $1. And Kimco's done great since. I don't know what it's doing recently, but it was a fantastic story. But for every one of those, you hang on to something and it goes down, and it take like Facebook busted the bid when it first came out. I wasn't on the street, but I had a lot of friends that bought stock through their brokers, and they were sweating bullets, and it took a while for that to recover. So anyway, my point is, if you're going to chase these things and then you want to say, well, GDC works, let's see if these next 5 or 6 are going to work. pick a target, I guess. Remember, Nixie traded 60 million shares one morning, went to, I don't remember the exact number, 12. And then one of the guys they bribed to help him gave him a bunch of stock, just like this might be, was actually worked predictably. I did predict it. Was working with the shorts and threw a spinnaker in a wrench in the spinnaker, or a spinnaker in the wrench. They stopped it, and it's pre-market. That guy somehow, and then the market had opened at 8, and it came back down. They tried it again at the beginning of this year, same sort of result. So that's why you got to be, if you're going to do it, you got to be paying attention pre-market. And what do you do? What do you do if you were in Nixie? It's like being in Finger when it was squeezing, or GTII when it was squeezing, in my opinion. Cindy Lou Who thinks I pick on Lou. I don't. I'm not picking on Lou. I'm just pointing out that the system has methodologies to stop squeezes in their tracks. So what do? I mean, for example, in the case of, let's pick Finger or GTI, they both went to basically the same price. I believed him. I believed, and I'm not blaming him, I believed my experience back when there were compliance officers, back when my accounts, and myself too, had experienced buy-ins. It's all right, it's going, it's happening. But then they brought in the COSM lie, and $35 million came out of those two stocks and went, and probably more, and went directly over to the CEO at COSM. He must have thought he woke up with Farrah Fawcett or something, went to bed with I don't know, his wife woke up with Farrah Fawcett. What a gift to him. But he was the key cog in the wheel to stop the two squeezes, my judgment. And if it hadn't been a guy named Lou, it would have been some other guy. You know, it's not about those people. It's the system has the money to corrupt everybody and to make, and they play people off. They're not beyond psychological tricks like praise. Hey, buddy, thanks for helping out. I got another deal for you. Here's a little cash. You're the best. And that guy doesn't even know what's going on. You know, it's not about Lou. I think Frank, that guy, knows exactly what he's doing. Or he's just thick, but he's been doing it so long, he's got to know. They're all up together in New York. The rest of the country is their mark. It's just how it is. And there's no compassion. None. No sense of morality. It's just make the money, have some fun with retail. So anyway, how do you trade it? If GDC suddenly ran to 12 or 9, like Finger and GTI, do you get out? In retrospect, that's what we all should have done. I didn't with Finger or GTII. But when it's happening, wow, it's going to work. It's going to 200. It's going to these unbelievable numbers. And they want you, and I fell into it because it's happened before, by the way. It's not a unknown scenario. If you go through previous squeezes, it's happened 20, 30, 40, 50 times. So it happens. But they want you thinking about these dream numbers so you don't sell while For example, in the Nixie case, the guy with the white poodle sold out, made a few million for himself, and he killed the whole deal. And they're all surprised, of course, because, oh, he's a good guy. He's working with us. I say, the guy works with the shorts. What are you thinking? No. He's a good guy, and he's on our side, and he knows what he's doing. He's going to help. Bullshit. The shorts have a perfect crime, and they all work together, whether they work specifically together or not, by agreement, but they do know that if they work together, there's enough mana to go around. Mana being money. So how do you trade it? If you get into GDC and it goes to 12 and a lot of volume and it's 60 million shares, it's 70 million shares, and I'm gonna buy more. It's gonna go. And then somebody like that dumps their shares, warns the shorts, the computers get overloaded with selling, and then the longs, who are putting up real money at risk, lose their cool, lose their nerve, and it all winds down. And then you're like, darn it, I should have sold at 12. And now it's back to 3. It's really a difficult way to make money. And it's always easy to point it out after these stocks are up. And it's good for the arrogance of some guys that come on here. I made money. I sold. You got to do your own due diligence. But it's very difficult unless you take the attitude when it's up. And I wouldn't put in stop limit orders. They'll come take it from you. But when it's up, I'm just going to sell. And if I miss the rest of it, I miss it. I'm going to be content with what that's the short squeeze place. In the alternative, you've got Railtown. You don't have to worry about any of that. None of that. And I hope it never squeezes. But Railtown's not like that. Railtown, when the attorneys finally get the acquisition of AIP by Railtown, it's incredible to me. You've got two parties who met in November a year ago. They met a year ago. And they've never shown us just a scintilla of hesitancy to get the deal done. At least from the outside, it looks that way. They're all full on for the deal. Yet it takes the attorneys 10 months. I can't imagine. These are friendly parties. They're not antagonistic toward each other. And the bloody thing took 10 months. Well, November will be 10 months. Or actually, if you count that they probably made the deal over the Christmas holidays, and then they called their attorneys, and it took a little while to put that press release together in February, you could argue it's been a year. What the hell took the attorneys so long? But anyway, we are where we are. And I think what you're going to see is, as soon as that deal does get closed, what I've referred to with terminology I've used for decades, somebody here called me out. It's not on Google. And then I looked it up. Sure enough, the term I use describes the period around an IPO or around earnings. So I don't know what to call the period from February 11th to October 31st, and it may go to November 3rd, the Monday, the Tuesday. I don't know what to call that period of time. I have a term that everyone in my former world quickly understands, but if you Google it, it's not accurate, so that I'm somehow being misleading. So I'm not going to use that term. I don't know what to call it, but the effect of that period from February 11th to October 31st, the lawyers had plenty of room to get their work done and, take a vacation and make sure their family's okay and work on others. And hey, I'm a partner. But anyway, meanwhile, their client has been on hold during the biggest bull market behind the scenes since, I've seen other bull markets. Maybe the .com as it started to accelerate. I've seen it happen in the fracking, the oil and gas fracking craze. And there's others that we can talk about. But the attorneys have very comfortably kept the company in the, maybe not in the penalty box, but in the corner while all the activity happens, because the attorneys, we got our life. We're important. I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too great to ignore. But meanwhile, the client is on hold. So we missed the second quarter. We missed the third quarter. It's starting to look like we could miss the fourth quarter. But that's on the surface. That's what we see. What's going on behind the scenes, I think you've got hard-charging teams at Railtown and at AIP who really know what the heck they're doing. John Ruffalo's been in the trenches for 2 or 3 decades. He backed Constellation Software. Mike Nobrega, the same thing. Dr. Tom Core. These are Omer's guys that backs Constellation Software, which is, it went to 5,000 a share in Canada. These guys know what they're doing. They've funded a lot of deals, and they've been active. I'm sure the phone lines are ringing. Ruffalo just raised, or is in the process of raising, $500 to $700 million to invest as non-operating. That's how I would call it. What would you call it up there? Minority interest investments, $50 million a pop for companies doing 10 million to 100 million in revenue in Canada. Well, that fits the parameter. That fits the definition of Railtown and AIP combined. So a very natural company that'll come in and be one of the first investors who goes big is Mavericks, is John Ruffalo. The dots are there to connect. And I don't think the company's going to do a big capital raise. They might do a strategic capital raise. So where does Ruffalo get his 5% of the company, 10% of the company? Where does he put 50 million to work in the company? Open market. And then it's put away. When that starts happening, these day trading shorts, they're going to go away. They won't come to make fun of me anymore and call me a crackpot, which unfortunately there is some truth to that. And they'll be gone. They'll be on to the next sting operation they can get involved in. The thing you've got to learn about Wall Street, took me years to learn, decades to learn. It's not personal. Even when they're stealing from you, it's not personal. When they're calling you, who is this old man that looks like Joe Biden's? And I use the word doppelganger, and then the woman, whoever, keeps using that, but whatever, Maybe she actually knew that word. I don't know. It's just all part of their gamemanship. As one of them said, it's a game. Well, you don't know the rules. I'll tell you the rules. You have no friends on Wall Street. Nobody's enforcing securities laws for the bad guys. Nobody. Against the good guys, the bad guys pay the SEC to enforce the laws against the good guys. And the SEC, what's in it? Revolving door. They get a job at Baker Botts or white shoe and left right hand pinky ring, PLLC, and it's all a big game to them. So Railtown's not that at all. We've unfortunately had to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. I'm surprised they didn't make sure the documents were on a lavender paper or maybe scented pink or had a little bow in it before they filed them. But I'm being mean. I shouldn't. I'm not being mean personally. I'm being mean conceptually. I shouldn't be mean. But we've just waited for the attorneys. That's coming to an end. And the good thing about it, when it's over, we don't have to experience it again. So this Friday, midnight, or Monday midnight, or Tuesday midnight, I suppose Sunday midnight, but sometime starting with Friday, maybe over the weekend so the attorneys can be with their families. They don't live the lives we do of wondering how we're going to pay our bills and pay our Pepco bill, and they don't live that life. So they got to spend time, in Banff. But they'll come back maybe Monday mid-afternoon, and they'll file something. They'll see that their assistant got it ready, and they'll file it maybe Monday night. But once it's filed, it's over with. Finally, our long wait is finished, and the company can start talking to investors, start talking to institutions, start disclosing revenues. But going back to Mavericks, and I showed you, it's in the news. He's raising more money. Well, going back to Mavericks, I never talked to the guy. I have no idea what he's going to do. But does Corey really need to talk to John Ruffalo about what's going on? Maybe he needs to update him on the revenues or the scale of revenues. But John Ruffalo knows exactly what the strategy is at AIP, and he knows the power of that strategy because right before him, for a decade and a half from the IPO, Constellation Software went from $1, whatever it was, to 5,000 Canadian. And his investors were in it. He knows the power. He founded Bloody API. He knows it. He doesn't need a pitch. All Ruffalo needs to know, did the deal get closed? And I think Friday, ipso facto, if that's the way to use that word, or finito, or get her done, it's finished on Friday. So that issue, Ruffalo can check off. What's the other issue I think Ruffalo would have to look at if he's going to be an investor in the combined company on behalf of Mavericks? I think the other issue is, Corey, when are you going to book revenue on the Railtown side, on the conductor side? And when are you going to start talking about it so that Railtown can go, again, I'm using my own thoughts, I don't talk to anybody, but all the competitors, I showed you Langchang, there's a private company too. They're all trading at 1.1, 1.25 billion, 2 billion, 1.5 billion, and they're just startups. Railtown's been at it for 6 years. So if I were John Ruffalo, I'd be talking to Corey. When are you going to get that message out? When are the revenues going to get out? When do you have a meeting with whatever, Canaccord Genuity? When do you have a meeting with Oracle? When do you have a meeting with somebody running a data center? Bell Atlantic or I don't know, whoever runs data centers up in Canada. When are you going to have these meetings? When are you going to be able to get the revenues out? Because as soon, to John Ruffalo, as soon as Railtown's trading at $1 billion, $1.5 billion, which it should be now, if it were a private company right now in the Wall Street fundraising daisy chain, it'd be priced at $1.5 billion right now. It's better than the competitors that are already starting there. It's better than Langchain. It'd be there. Of course, that's a valuation. That's a subjective observation because I don't have the metrics to be objective. But if Corey can tell the story, which will finally happen after the attorneys release him from his shackles, self-imposed in some ways by hiring that bloody firm, all that would matter to John Ruffalo at Mavericks 2 is, Corey, are you talking to this Canadian investment group? Have you spoken with this Canadian data center? Have you spoken with this Canadian, AI provider that would be perfect for Conductor? I've hooked you up with these 3 introductions. Have you done it? That would be the phone call that John Ruffalo would make to Corey. And so what John would be looking for, in my judgment, is when is the stock going to be trading like its peers? When is it going to get a valuation equivalent to the worst of its peers? $1.5 billion, $1.25 billion. At $1.25 billion, let's say Railtown right now is 65 million. That's 19x from here, 19x from here. Okay, that's one thing that we'll get excited about that. But to John Ruffalo's mind, 19x, he's not thinking necessarily that way. He's thinking I just want to get what that price works out to. It's about $8.36. Let's call it $8. He's thinking in his mind what he's really trying to get from Corey in that phone call. How quickly do you believe, and we all know it's a ballet, well, it's not even a ballet, it's more of a free-form dance. It's an art, we don't know exactly. But when is your sense that you're going to go through raising money, locking up these revenue deals so your stock can trade at $1 billion, $1.5 billion? In other words, when is your stock going to trade for $7.50 a share, $8, $6, $6.50? Why does that matter? He's not thinking of it in terms of uh, I've established a small position, I can flip it out. He's not thinking of it in I need to convince my investors that I made the right decision. He's not thinking about it in terms of, oh, I'm hot money, I've got to trade it. That's not how John Ruffalo's thinking about it. You know what he's thinking about? He knows the power of 180 companies with 400 million in revenue being rolled up in the model of Constellation Software. But what critical ingredient is he missing? In John Ruffalo's mind for AIP, what's the key ingredient missing now? Stock price. How does Corey and his team go to, I mean, I don't know if they'd go for this one, but I showed it to you. I got to look it up, the name of it. I went through on Google and I queried what revenues are these companies making. Here, I did and I've shown it, I typed it up for you, but I did the section under, I think it was called Finance AI. And there's a company there called ECS Finance, and it's doing 77 million in revenue every year. Now, I don't know the multiple, I don't know the growth rate, but I do know that's a big number. So what if the first company, and I'm not saying John Ruffalo is going to be part of the team or not. He, when you think about it, he may not be able to if he's going to be an outside investor. Anyway, the phone lines will be burning either way. But the founders of AIP, and John Ruffalo is one of them, know that one of the lowest hanging fruit or the sweetest plums is ECS Financial, subject to whether or not it's a high margin revenue. It's $77 million a year in revenue. Well, if I were AIP, I'd say, let's go after them first. Well, now that AIP is part of Railtown, they've got the logic problem, the Brent Sun problem. How do you roll up ESC Financial when your stock's 40 cents and you're not really showing any revenue without wiping out your whole story? You got to be a good salesman. You got to be willing to do the work. You can't just give up like Brent did and go over to Nixie. You gotta stay in there. So what is the key ingredient that John Ruffalo needs? He needs Corey to get out there and talk Corey's book. What is Corey's book? At least a year and a half, maybe 2 years of commercializing their product, converting 3 areas, converting their beta test group, which Corey says is large, into revenue customers, converting the network customers, the cross-selling, not the acquisition, the cross-selling in AIP, 5,000 companies, getting just some of those, converting all the leads and hot leads that Corey and Marwan and Dr. Elliott created at all the conferences they went to. So I guess that's the third. The fourth is this digital has a huge number of enterprises they can cross-sell to. And then they just signed the deal with Uniserve that has 3,000 companies. And by the way, 2 months ago, they signed a deal with Brayett out of the Middle East, who at least claims that they can bring in customers from the Middle East needing a conductor. So what John Ruffalo is going to say on his phone call after the deal is closed, that's next week, how quickly can you convert what seems to me a gigantic universe of companies that Railtown has already been heavily engaged with many. How quickly can you convert all of that story with conductor to revenue that Wall Street is going to believe? How quickly can you show a path to 150 million in revenue or 200 million, which would put you in league with Soundhound, which is almost an $8 billion company making zero money. So this is what John Ruffalo is going to be asking Corey. Same question you were asking. When the bloody hell are you going to get revenues out there so the stock price can go up? I think it's going to happen very quickly, by the way. And I think John Ruffalo can be one of, look, I'm doing a lot of assuming on the way to my horizon here. But if John Ruffalo indeed is going to put Mavericks 2 as one of his investments, Railtown, which he knows all about the bloody thing. He's one of the founders of AIP a year ago, met Railtown and said, why don't you buy us? I love your conductor so much. So John Ruffalo is calling Corey. He's saying, when do you think that's happening? Oh, we've got this meeting, that meeting, this meeting, boom, 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 boom. Can't tell you about this, but you remember that guy. And sure as hell they do, because John introduced the guy. Or John was in the original meeting with the guy. But I can't tell you the status because that's, but boom. So John Ruffalo says, great. So you think by the end of November, December sometime, you're going to be able to get 50 million in revenue projected out to the street, out to Polar Bear Street. Yeah, we might even do better than that, John, Corey says. Well, so then John knows a couple of things. He can help his own goals, and he's got investors who experienced Constellation software. He can help his own goals by buying Railtown now, next week, following week. What if his mandate says you can't buy any stock under $1, under $2, under $3? Well, he's going to probably have to go to his committee, and he's probably in charge of it, and say, we got to make an exception here. Not because Railtown is cheap. That's not the issue, although it is, and it's an attractive price to buy. I don't think that would be his argument to his own committee. I think his argument would be, we're not going to be able to accumulate 5 or 10% of this company unless we start buying now. I think that will be his motive, not the price, the ability to own 5 or 10% of the company in the open market. He'll have to start buying. Now, what was his conversation with Corey? When do you think? It's basically, when do you think the stock price is going to be going up, leaving out all the steps in between? Well, we should be there by the end of the year. Great. I'm going to go. He doesn't tell Corey that. He goes back and he says, I think we got to start establishing our position. I want to own And by the way, that's not inside information because Corey will be telling the street, and there'll be research, and there'll be PowerPoint presentations. That's just color. Corey's now able to talk to investors and say in general, what's coming. So, and John knows. John doesn't have to be educated like we do. John can read the tea leaves. So he goes to his committee and he says, I want to establish 10% ownership. I'm making it up, of course. 10% ownership in Railtown as one of our core positions. And I think if we dedicate 50 to 60 million to this investment in the open market, we'll be able to get to 10% if we start now. We might not have to spend 60 million because if we can buy enough at $1 or $2, $3, we're not buying it all at $6. But I think we got to start now. So he gets approval from his committee. He starts buying the stock in the open market. The boo birds come on here. They call me a crackpot and they say, oh, you got to win here. You got to come over to, remember the guy came on here and said, you got to come over to COSM. To my memory, it was $1.20. And sure enough, it had just been up and then it went right back down to 50 or something. I'm doing that by memory. All of that isn't going to matter anymore because if John's coming in from next week to the end of the year to buy essentially 50 million shares, if he can, for his pre-sorted budget. Let's say he allocates 75 million of his fund, 10% of his fund to buy Railtown. Why would he do that? Why would he put it all in one fund? Why would he concentrate? Why doesn't he diversify? Well, he was the prime investor along with Mike Nobrega and Omers in Constellation Software. He was one of three founders, Mike Nobrega, Dr. Tom Core, and John Ruffalo, one of three founders of AIP Network with the specific goal, it's in the press releases, the specific goal of collecting the best private AIP companies and then rolling them up. So John knows he wants to own. I'm surprised he doesn't want to own 50%, but he wants to own it for his fund. This is my story I'm giving you right now. So he starts buying, let's say next week or the following week, and he has a mandate to buy 50 million shares, and he can spend, pick a number. He can spend up to 75 million or 100 million, whatever his mandate is. So he goes into the market, and he doesn't do it all with one broker. He's got brokers all over Polar Bear Street. He calls up Canaccord, hey, I'd like you to work an order for me. Do it on the low. How much do you think? How many shares can you buy today? Well, we probably could get 50,000 shares to 100,000 shares here at this price. But if you show me more than that, the price has to go up. All right, buy me 1 million shares. Buy me as much as you can, up to $1.25, and let me know. But do it quietly. Do it quietly. I don't know. I don't want anyone knowing it's me. And then he goes over and he calls TD Bank, and he says, "Hey, buddy, what are you seeing in the market?" Okay, and oh yeah, Canaccord's in. Yeah, I knew about that. But what else are you seeing? Do you have any stock for? Well, I'll tell you what. Do you think you could buy me any? I could buy you 500,000 right now. What price? Well, let me hang on the phone. Let me make a call. I can give you $500,000 right now at 80 cents. Do it. Done. And why don't you work an order for 2.5 million shares up to $2? And you don't have to do it all one day. You just please do it with your judgment. Don't make it go up, but don't let it get away from me. I want to own the shares. Buy me another 1.5 million shares up to $2. And then he calls over to I don't know, Polar Bear Securities in Vancouver, and he says, Blue Star likes Railtown. No, he wouldn't say that, but he calls up and he says, look, I have a couple of orders working on the street. Do you have anything that's available right away on a symbol, Railtown? Well, we're not really active in it, but I do see the activities picking up. Well, I don't want you to work against my other 2 orders, but what can you get me right now? Well, I don't know. Hold the phone. Hey, what do they call each other up in Canada? I can't think of a particularly Canadian name. Hey, who was the hockey player? Anyway, hey, hockey player, what do you have on your book? Can you give me a quick read on Railtown? Well, we're not really trading it, but hang on a second. There's some stock for sale from the idiot shorts. They're willing to sell you 50,000 shares, and I bet you could get more. Hey, John, I think we can get you 50,000 shares right now, but my guy's working how much do you want? Well, I'll buy 1 million shares all the way up to $1. Don't go to $1 right. They know that already. All right. Hey, hockey player, you can see if you can buy 1 million shares. Do the best you can. Up to $1. All right, we put the order in for you, John. Great, let me know. And then he goes around Wall Street and he's at Polar Bear Street and he has those orders in. So from, let's say, the second week of November until the end of the year, Mavericks, just one company, has orders in to buy, and I'm making this story up. You can change the magnitude. They have orders in to buy 50 million shares up to $6. Well, what happens? The bid gets firm. The shorts, they're not having much fun. So they stop eventually. They'll keep at it because it's their modus operandi and they always win. But they'll stop at some point. The line of credit from the prime broker and the lending desk will dry up. So John may not be able to get his whole order filled before the stock goes to 10. I'm making the crap up. So then he goes back to his committee, which he's in charge of, and he says, committee, I could only get 15 million shares of Railtown up to $6. And the average price was around $3.50. But I'd really like to get, if we can, to 5%. I wouldn't mind going to 10% by the end of the year. So I'd like your authorization that I can go in and pay up to $10 or $15. Well, John, what do you think? Well, John, I think we should do it. Okay, John, why don't you do it? So he raises his prices. Remember, he's not like you. or me. He just wants to have this percentage of the company. And he's already established a big position, let's say at an average of $3. So if he buys some more up to 15, his average is still $9 as he's going up. So it looks good on his portfolio. But the key is, why does he want to buy it? He wants to be in AIP's success story. So that's going on at Mavericks too. And this is my own concoction of a story. I have no leads. But you know it. You know it. All the evidence is there. You know, Tucker Carlson could put this together. Well, he's probably a little bit smarter than I give him credit for. But Joe Rogan could put it together. AOC could put it together if she ever got to her office. She was never in her office any of the multiple times I went to Capitol Hill, ever. She just had people would leave stickers on her door, and she had a sign-in book. So then, that's going on at Mavericks too. Now, at Railtown, who as of Friday, and maybe the lawyers will get around filing the notice by Monday next week, Tuesday next week, Railtown now is the proud owner of AIP and a network of 180 companies that they can cross-sell to, but they're also in control of one of the most powerful business plans on the planet. If Constellation Software were run by Charlie Munger, you'd have heard of it. If Constellation Software were run in the United States by anybody, you'd have heard of it. But Leonard was very quiet, and he did a great job, and I hope his health holds up. So, Corey, if you read the documents, is the first and the only director on the board of what the attorneys cleverly called a subsidiary. They called it a Malco. A Malco. Clever. I mean, that kind of creativity. But I guess when you're an attorney, you're not rewarded for creativity. So they'll change the name to something else. Maybe the what's another word than constellation? Maybe I don't know. Zodiac AI Ventures or something. I don't know. That's a stupid name. Starry Night AI Ventures. I don't know. But they'll probably change it from a Malco. But anyway, right now, Corey Brandolini is the only guy running. Well, he's on the board. I guess they'll have Dr. Tom Core in there somewhere. But my point is, Railtown controls the bloody thing. So now it's December. Now it's January. A little late because the attorneys have taken so long. But the stock's $7.50 a share, $8 a share, $10 a share. The one ingredient that John Ruffalo needed to roll up ECS Financial, a $77 million company, is stock price. Stock price. And there, John's gotten that up. And Mavericks has helped get it there himself. But the price is up. They go to EC Financial, and the revenue was 77 million. Now they're not going to pay 50 times. They're not going to pay 35 times. Why? Because that's what the market's paying. They're going to buy this under market price. Why? Because they're going to provide the finance. If they follow the model, the Constellation software, as it's described, and I read it to you, they will be providing the guarantee of financing and knowledge and know-how to get ECS Financial to grow their revenues. And they're going to stay hands-off, but they become the backstop. So ECS Financial can go about its business and excel. I'm picking that one. That might not be the one they pick. There's a one down here called Soho Square Software. They're doing 21 million a year. They could pick that one. There's another one called Uplink, and link is spelled with a Q. It's very clever, so it's Uplink with a Q instead of a CK, or just a K. Wow. Hurricane, it hit Jamaica at 185. And the gusts must be going up to 250 and 300. That is devastating. But it moved west, so it didn't go through Jamaica Harbor where all those men were around. So that's a blessing. But man, that's a buzzsaw. We have to say our prayers for Jamaica. So anyway, Corey is in charge of AIP. He's going to make the negotiation himself. Now, he does have to get approval from the managers like Tom Core, but Tom Core owns, in his team, Tom Core and Nobrega, the whole team, they own 22% of Railtown. So their interest is to keep the multiple paid for the one I picked first, ECS Financial, 77 million, low. Why? Because their benefit is in the 22.5% of Railtown they own. They're on our side. All the decision makers are on our side. So they go to ECS Financial and they say, your revenue is 77 million a year and we'll pay you 5x. And ECS Financial says, baloney, you're not paying us 5x. We want 15. Well, we're not going to do that. But I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll pay 8x. We'll give you a couple of million in cash over the next few months when you need it. We're not giving it to you right up front, but we'll give you that, and we'll take care of this and that, and we'll give you some employee options so that if you meet some targets, you can get 50% more stock at $15. Anyway, they make out a deal. Well, all right. We like that, and we like our upside, but instead of 8x, why don't you make it 10x? Cordy hums and haws, but he has to negotiate with himself, and he says, done, 10x. So Corey is going to issue shares, restricted shares, of Railtown to buy ECS Financial based on a $77 million annual revenue at 10x. What is that? It's pretty high, actually. My example is getting away from me, but it's 770 million. But his stock, Corey's stock, this example might not work. So he's going to issue stock. The stock's trading, let's say, at $10. So that's pretty tough. I've told you before, I think Corey in his mind has about 125 million shares to issue before he sells the company. I think he wants it 50-50. So I don't think this deal gets done. That would be 77 million shares. I don't think that deal gets done. So let's say he waits until the stock price is higher, or he goes back to the guys and says to them, you want to get in early because our future, we're going to be sold out. We'll do it at 5x, which is 30 million, 32, 33 million shares. That's still a lot of shares. I'm not sure Corey would do that deal right away as his first deal. But if you just allow me with the example, so they buy the company at 5x on revenues. They give a bunch of bells and whistles to the team to stay working hard. So if the company gets sold, they make a lot more. And they issue, let's call it 33 million shares, and that's added to the 222 million shares. So now you have 255 million shares outstanding. But guess what? All of a sudden, at 255 million shares outstanding, you've got revenue that is confidently projected and accepted by Wall Street from the conductor's side. Pick a number. Probably 50 million is safe. Maybe it's 100 million. Maybe it's 150 million. Forward 12 months. Let's call it 100 million. Let's call it 100 million. Railtown has booked that and convinced the world it's 100 million. And they got ECS Financial under their orbit for 33 million shares. There's 222 million shares extant. You add them together, 255 million shares outstanding. But ECS Financial brings 77 million in revenue currently. With a little advice and a little ramping up, they present 100 million. Forward 12 months. Conductors forward 12 months. That's 200 million. That is kicking Soundhound's butt. Soundhound becomes a dirty old egg-sucking dog compared to Railtown. Why? Because Railtown, with the AIP revenue combined at 200 million, makes a profit. Not only do they make a profit, they make 40 to 60% profit. Again, it's my story. It's my story. Wall Street has a heart attack, and they say, man, this is better than Soundhound. And Soundhound's trading at 8 billion, 7,770,000. Call it 7.5 billion. So as soon as that deal gets hooked up, and they use different attorneys, so it doesn't take 10 months. They go and hire, how do I say this politely? They go and hire a male Wall Street attorney, and they lock that deal up quickly. Boom, boom. Well, all of a sudden, come February, let's say they did that December, January, come March, let's say March, you've got a company with 200 million forward 12 months, and it's got revenue which is profitable. The margin, let's call it 50%. They're booking 100 million in not only cash flow, but in bloody profits, revenue, earnings. So Wall Street says, Soundhound is doing 100, and they're projected to do right around 175 million next year. And they're not making any money. And they're trading at 7.5 billion. Railtown should trade at Railtown should trade at 7.5 billion. Railtown should trade at 7.5 billion. But wait a minute. Soundhound's trading at 7.5 billion. That's a 35 multiple. They're not making any money. Don't you think Railtown should be trading at a better multiple? Yes. Why don't we say it's going to trade at double? 70 multiple. Well, that's 15 billion. Okay, let's add it to our portfolios up to 15 billion, because that still gives us room as the revenue grows. And if somebody comes and pays 100x or 150x, there's still room on. All right, that's our valuation, 15 billion. Well, let's say Railtown doesn't issue any more shares than the 255 at that point. It will. You got a stock worth $58.82 at the end of the first quarter. That's my story. You can adjust the numbers the way you want, but the magnitude of that is so large. William, you're a crackpot. You're blinded by you're so blinded you can't see straight. All right. What do you want to do? Well, let's assume it's only worth what Soundhound was worth. Where'd you come up with 15 billion? All right, divide it in two. At the end of the first quarter, it's worth $29 a share and 41 cents. Railtown is not GDC or ZJY or any of these, where you've got to, or let's use HKD. I'll try to find the picture again. Railtown is not one where you got to time it right, and of course you got to wait. You have no control of when the gun shoots off, and then you got to balance your emotions of, I want that, $500 target, but if it goes to 12, who knows if the person they just gave shares to doesn't come in and throw a brick in the works, and it comes right back down. Railtown, your job now in Railtown, you've been through the hard part, in my judgment. Your job now is to wait for the hell the attorneys put us through, because they've never actually had to achieve in their life and compete and create something. Well, that's fine. That's their life. We don't have to, I don't even have to comment on it anymore. That's how they were trained. Come Friday, it's over with. It's over with Friday. Now, when do they announce it? I doubt they'll work till 5 o'clock on Friday. They won't work past 5:30. So I don't think there'll be an announcement Friday or a filing. Will they work on the weekends? Well, my son wants to go to see his grandparents, and I haven't spent time with him, so we're going to drive up to Kerflunk, British Columbia, and I'm probably not going to get back till Monday evening. So why don't we wait till Tuesday? I mean, I'm an important attorney. I'm a superwoman. I can do it all. I can do the family. I can do the career. I can do the shopping. I am wonderful. Men couldn't do what I can do. So I just need some time. I'll come back on Tuesday. So it might be Tuesday that we see. Realistically, the filing, they'll have it typed up, but realistically, we'll see it come across Canada's regulatory services, I'd say Tuesday, maybe Tuesday at midnight. I would say parenthetically that unfortunately for men, if a man were in charge of this account, he'd call his wife and say, honey, I got to work late Friday night. Why don't you and the kids get up to Flunk, British Columbia without me, and I'll take the polar bear flight Saturday afternoon. Oh, honey, we were counting. No, I got to finish something up. That's my opinion of what a male attorney would do. But I think we're going to just have to deal with what we got. It's not wrong. It's just different. It's a different approach. So I think the filing, so we know the AIP deal, could take all the way until midnight Tuesday night. But then the story I just described to you starts. And remember, John Ruffalo founded AIP. He asked Railtown to buy AIP. And I think it's because of the mechanism I just told you about. Remember Brent's son in Logic? He said he was going to roll up 7 or 8 companies worth $1 billion. He took the first one in the door. And that first one, I don't remember the percentages, probably took 95% of the company, or 87.5%. And now it's over in Greenberg's hand. Well, no, that's collective audience. It's all rigged sting. So John and Corey are smart enough to know we can't get into that. We need the price of Railtown up so we can go negotiate with the cards in our hand, and we can make something happen that helps all shareholders, including the companies we acquire. This is going to be fun. So anyway, that starts next week. I say John Ruffalo's phone call in my story, remember it's my story, John Ruffalo's phone call to Corey starts Wednesday a.m. next week. And Corey's answers are so good that Mavericks 2, John, it's my story. John's committee, which he's in charge of, starts buying Railtown stock the following Monday or Friday. And they walk it up slowly. They don't want to make it run. And I think he's in there buying for his own book at Mavericks 2, 5% up to 10% in the open market. That's my story. And as the stock price goes up, John Ruffalo gets a double advantage. His Maverick fund looks great, and he gets to report to his investors, we're already up. And guess what? We own 5% of one of the most exciting companies in Canada. And in fact, in North America. And Corey just bought, under our business plan, Corey just rolled up the first company. And he has in his business plan up to 125 million shares he can use to roll up. His goal is to roll up $250, $300 million. So we're going to have a company, again, it's my story. We're going to have a company by the end of the second quarter, which could be with the roll-up revenue doing $300 million on the roll-up side. And we believe here at Mavericks 2 that Corey's Corey and Marwan and Dr. Elliott and the whole team, their conductor platform could be doing 300 million as well. We'll own 50-50 of the company together, and that's 600 million. And we project that to an acquirer, they'll pay 100 to 125x. So they could pay 60 billion for the company. It's my story. It's my story. You can change the magnitude if you want to. But that's what's ahead with Railtown. Not, hey, can we see if we get Univest to come in and we got some big whales, and let's send 2 or 3 million to the guy in wherever the hell he is, the Bahamas or Cayman Islands. He'll turn on his computers. And if we can get someone in China to give us a believable audit that they believe in New York City, well, why don't we use a New York auditing firm? Well, the Bitcoin's not really there. And if it's there, we can take it back. Oh, okay. Well, we'll use, we'll use, whatever. It's not one of those stories. The reason Railtown has been disappointing to you is the attorneys take forever. And it's just life. We as a society have changed our priorities. It's okay. We have to operate within, and it's not worse. It may be better. Maybe fewer people die of heart attacks. Fewer people, get high blood pressure. It's not worse. It's just different. So we adjust to it. And what we've had to pay is we've had to wait. That waiting period is over by Tuesday at midnight. It might be sooner, but I'd be surprised if they file anything before Monday morning. And they won't even get in the office ready to work by Monday morning. So it'll be Monday after hours or Tuesday after hours. But anyway, we can live with that. Wednesday, that story I just described starts with Mavericks 2. But what if Omer's calls up? What if Mike Nobrega's friends at Omer's Venture Fund calls up? And what if Omer's Venture Fund, who knows John, but also knows Corey because they've probably been introduced over the last year, because Corey doesn't sit on his butt. He works his butt off. He doesn't have a butt anymore. So what if Mavericks has their strategy, but now Omer's Venture Fund has a similar strategy? What if the Canadian Fidelity AI fund comes in? What if Canaccord has their own little dedicated fund? What if I showed you a whole list. There's at least 24, if not more, funds in Canada that focus on technology. I showed you, and I'll try to find it again. If more than one fund follows what Mavericks 2, it's my story, Mavericks 2 does, well, all of a sudden you got people competing to buy the stock. The bid starts coming up. It's informal at first. It doesn't matter what the boo birds do anymore. The stock loan desks say, no, we're not going to let you sell any more stock. We're not lending you anymore. And the aggressive shorts, 1 or 2 gets burned, but their credit's dried up. So you don't see a lot of stock for sale, maybe. And you shouldn't be selling yours. You don't have to be magical. You don't have to worry if it goes to 7 that it's going to collapse to 1. If it goes to 12, it's going to collapse to 2. You don't have to worry about that. I mean, it's going to be volatility, no question. But you just ride that out. I've given you the numbers. If the company does 100 million and it's priced at 125x, and you use the full, well, actually, in that example, I only used 275 million shares. You got a $45 stock. But if you use 50x, you got an $18 stock. You don't have to get panicked out of this thing. All that's been painful is we're waiting. How many of you in your lifetime have been ready to go out the door? Honey, are you ready? I'll be right with you. I've just got to finish. That's all we've been waiting. That's it. It'll be over. She'll get in the front seat soon. Tuesday, she's in the front seat. Wednesday morning, we can go on this journey together. And I think from Wednesday morning to the end of the year, up is the stock price. Revenues will be disclosed, and that's up. And I'd say in January, February, maybe sooner, but I'd say January, February, when the stock price is established, they start rolling up these companies. And then you get a double-barreled revenue growth projection. I think I've showed it to you. I think there's 200 and I might be using too many shares. There's 222 million shares of, okay, there's 175 million of Railtown fully diluted. They added 50 to that, so that's 225. I bad arithmetic. So double that. Oh no, I know what I did. I took the 50 out down to 175 and doubled that. That's the 350. That's what I think is fair, and I think that gives Corey and the team 125 million of shares to spend as currency. He's not going to spend it down at 50 cents. He's going to get the price up. That's his goal. But all of the principals at AIP now own Railtown. That's their goal. All of the companies that are going to roll up are going to own shares with us. It's their goal. This is going to be a fun trip. All we've had to wait for. Honey, come on, can we go? I just got a couple things to do. All right. Oh. Come on, honey. What's going on? Oh, I just had to finish. I had to clean the kitchen before I don't want to come back. Oh God. Are you ever going to be finished? I'll be no. Good thing you're beautiful, honey. Anyway, all right, let's go through your questions. Let's look at the prices. Mountain is down $1 at 335. So if you bought it at 26, I know you got out by now. Finger is up 11 cents at 163. Remember, they have a 50 million at the market offering out there. As this stock goes up, you know this already. The shorts, whoever they are, there may be one, it might be the toad, it might be more than that. The clients of O'Flaherty are going to be selling you stock that does not exist as you buy it. Ham's going to tell you it's great, and other Frank, I guess, is too. I guess he's on their treat well list now, so to speak. As the stock goes up, those institutions will start selling stock to you that doesn't exist. As soon as it gets to a nice number, 5 million in their account, 10 million, whatever, O'Flaherty will do it at the money offering, but at that time, the stock will be $1.25 or $1.30, and they'll call up to finger motion. They'll say we'll do the deal at $1. The stock's trading at $1.25. We'll do it at $1.10, and we want 2x, 2.5x warrant coverage. And the company's going to say no. So I wouldn't be in a rush to buy finger right now. Just let the dust settle. G-Bucks is green at 1781. Don't know what to say, except that if GDC works, G-Bucks looks pretty cheap. But that's gambling. Gambling, you don't have to gamble with Railtown. And I don't think you should play defensively with Railtown. I think if the story I laid out, you might not like my magnitude, but that's the story. Institutions in Canada are going to be buying Railtown. And as the price goes up, supply is going to wither. So you're not going to be able to buy as many shares as you can buy down here. It's counterintuitive. Right now, you could buy 100,000 shares of Railtown if your name is, I don't know, Eric. I'm not picking on him. You could buy 100,000 for 42 grand, 45 grand. In a month, you won't be able to buy maybe 10,000 for 42 grand. It won't be available. It's hard to understand. But they're just printing non-existent shares to you that Wall Street has to honor. Wall Street honors it. So you have a chance to build a large position in Railtown inexpensively. But as the stock goes up, they're not going to be Xeroxing shares of Railtown to you. They're not going to be mimeographing them. They're not going to be hypothecating and rehypothecating. They're not going to be creating them out of thin air anymore. They're not going to be lying to their market makers. So there won't be supply, and the price will be 10, 20, 30x from here. The time to build the position in Railtown is now. It's not the time to be defensive. The time to be aggressive is now. It's upon us. Success is nigh. All right. Mountain is down down 96 cents at 341. GDC is down 16 cents at 415. And of course, Railtown is down over a penny. Its bid is 41.81. The last trade 42.34. The ask is 43.11. So I guess they hit the bid. The volume is 243,000 shares. The high today is 44. The last trade 42. Just theoretically, let's say 43,000 of those shares are real, 200 aren't. And just theoretically, not all in one trade, many trades, on 200 million shares, if they made 2 cents, they make 4 grand. It's better than waiting tables. It's better than driving a truck. It's better than building roofs. That's what they do. Has nothing to do with the fundamentals. And that game's going to be over in Railtown soon. Because when the stocks are higher, they're going to have actually have skill and take risk. They don't. Number one, they don't have skill. And number two, they don't want to take risk. Right now, it's almost a free good because retail doesn't buy. And guys like Eric, I've got to be defensive now. Well, man, That's really deep, man. That's deep. You're going to be defensive at 43 cents. Wow, man. Why'd you buy it? Well, I bought my position because I think it's going to go to $20. Wow, man. So you're going to be defensive because what do you think's going to happen? Well, it could go down. How much do you think? Well, 30 cents. It could go down to 30 cents. Wow, man. You're saying that the risk is 10 cents and the reward is $20? Wow, man. I like how you think. That's a good time to be defensive. Don't bogart that. I got to think more like you do. Risk 10 cents, gain $20. How long do you have to wait? Well, you probably only have to wait about 4 weeks, 6 weeks to start. Oh man, I like how you think. Give me more of that, because when I was sober, that wouldn't make sense to me. But now that I'm stoned, I see what you're thinking. You're going to be defensive on 10 cents. And you're going to forego $20 on the upside over the next 2 or 3 months. Wow, man. You're a powerful thinker, man. All right, so it's 41.81 to 43.50. Opened at 44, low of 40 cents. 0.401, 243,000 shares. And last trade was 1,000 shares at 42.34. And I just want to see how those poor souls at Jamaica are doing. Oh boy. Oh boy. Why? Someone writes this from WTKR News. Hurricane Melissa makes landfall in Jamaica with potentially devastating effects. I guess you put the potentially in there to cover your ass. Maybe it's just to be defensive. Oh boy. I hope they just get upstairs. They go up in the mountains. It hit at 185 miles per hour. That is, they say it's because of the heat in the ocean. But, I mean, obviously that's it. But one thing I call to your attention, there may be radiation in the ocean too. If Fukushima's every 3 days, the spray they're putting on the aquarium at Fukushima goes up in the troposphere. It comes over here and it rains down in North America and Canada. And if it gets into the Mississippi and it's out in the Caribbean, radiation is energy. That too could be the reason for powerful hurricanes. Doesn't just have to be climate change. But they don't want you talking about the massive destruction that what they call nuclear accidents. They're not accidents. They happen on average every 5 to 7 years. They're occurrences, and you plan on them, and they are damaging. But let's get off of that. That's a path equally as productive as some of my other paths. All right, so Railtown is down 126, 41.81. to 43.5. And this hurricane's awful. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at pictures. It's just, you got to pray for those souls. And then the animals. It's going to be devastating. All right, let's go to the top. Pat M. How are you, Pat? Marty Party. How are you doing? Eric B. I'm not upset with you, Eric. I just astonished by your thinking, but I get it. I mean, everybody's got to be comfortable. I love how you own 150,000 shares, and I think probably you're a professional, so you'll be really, that's a huge position. I wish I had it. You are going to be astonished. But if you're better than I am, I'd be looking at it like, oh my gosh, I could have owned 300, but that's me, because I have a weak brain, weak emotionally. I'm not strong like you are. Just checking headlines. U.S. government investing $80 billion in nuclear reactors. We're going to head down that totally insane path of ruining this planet like Mars got destroyed. But hey, we'll all be dead, right? So it's not our responsibility. Don't fight retail. They've poured $300 billion into the markets since April. NVIDIA's investing $1 billion into Nokia. Subprime auto lenders folding. 1 in 10 Americans are on SNAP. It all goes through Morgan Stanley. Mamdani is going to reform New York City. Wall Street moves to Miami. Well, we're certainly living in interesting times. We're certainly living in interesting times. CJ Yukon, here we go again. I know. Eric was kidding me. I'm kidding you too. Don't worry. Donna says, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Donna. Hello, Eric B. and everyone. Eric B., my defensive position continues to fuel William. No offense. No, it's all right. I think it's stupid. It's one of the stupidest positions you've ever taken, but hey, it's your decision. My speculative bucket money is empty for that. Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to mortgage my house. No, don't mortgage your house. Don't mortgage your house. Don't mortgage your house. I'm not saying that. So if you've, so you weren't telling the truth yesterday. You said that you have to be defensive. The real truth is you didn't have any more money to invest from the speculative part. That makes sense. I'm not saying you're an untruthful person. Yeah, I just think you didn't represent the situation. And again, I don't think you did it on purpose. It's not that you're being defensive. You just don't have any more money to put to the position. That makes sense. Eric, I'm fine with my actual position. That's what is important. Exactly. That's all that's important. Donna, that's true. Donna says, Eric, I've been the focus of William's discussion before. That's true too. It's not so much, I forget what I said to Donna, but you know what? Maybe with a little cajoling, Donna saw something and got her position up to 100 million. I'm not taking credit. That's Donna's hard work and her own analysis, and I think she's going to be well rewarded. But Eric, when I talk, I'm also talking other, because you have an impact. When you put something out there, I'm being defensive for now. Other people might take that same view. I'm talking to everybody. But yeah, Eric, I mean, if you don't have more money in that speculative space, well, then you don't. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm probably just envious of your position. That's a really nice position. Edward Barona says lots of laughs every day keeps dropping. Well, yeah, but it's always dropping from a higher number. So it's basically flat. Right now it's 42.34. That's where it was 2 months ago. That's where it was 4 weeks ago. This morning it opened at 44, which was the high. Yesterday it went higher than that. They let it go up. It's in the green, and then they bring it down from that up. And so in your sort of lazy view, Edward, you see it down in the red every day. Fair enough. I can't argue with that. It's always in the red, but it's not going down, 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 down. It goes up each day and then down, up, down, up. And so it's basically flat. And so I don't agree with you that it keeps dropping. I don't see Railtown dropping at all. For the last many days, it hasn't dropped. It's just, I share your frustration that it's red, 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 red. Richard K. Goof to you. Goof afternoon, William, and I wish Lucky were here. Wall Street Wolfie, Nixie was supposed to do so well for us. Yeah. They hired one of the guys that was the architects behind Nixie, ran a short fund, which you might be familiar with, Wall Street Wolfie. And there's many of the same players in Nixie as are in, I don't think it's a perfect match, but it's a lot of the same players. But they hired this guy with the poodle, the white poodle, White Diamond Research. They hired him. And I'm sure you know the guy, Wall Street Wolfie. And so they thought White Diamond Research was on their side. When the stock started going up to 12, that guy called the company and said, unless you make my shares free to trade immediately, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to report all of this to the authorities and I'm going to shut it all down. So they made his shares freely tradable. I forgot how many it was. 2 million, 3 million, 1 million. And so he immediately pre-market started selling his stock. And my guess is he called all the short sellers and told them what's going on. Said, look, these guys don't, I'm making this number up. These guys don't have more than 10 million at play. So don't get scared. Just start hitting the stock and it'll go down. They don't have any staying power. And so he took $3, $4, $5 million out of the play. And then he sabotaged it with people you work with, Wall Street Wolfie. So it's an odd thing for you to blame me for your criminality. It's the height of chutzpah. It really is. It was rigged. I think some people made money on Nixie. I don't think I ever said so much, but if it's squeezed, it could be a big number. But I don't remember having big targets for Nixie. And I think a lot of people that listened to me that December made money. And then they tried it again in February with equally poor results. So Wall Street Wolfie, that you're trying to make fun of me for your actions, that's fine, but it highlights what I'm saying to people. They shouldn't be playing any of these stocks. I'll give you an example. If you have let's say I'll use Eric's account. I'm not picking on him, but I'll use his account and assume he has one position. He probably has more than one. But with 150 million shares, 150,000 shares at 42 cents. His account right now, I'm assuming I'm sure he has more than that, but his account right now is 63 grand. Well, Wall Street Wolfie, if people want to get into these other stocks that the Charm Boys are talking about, and let's say it's Eric, he's going to have to reduce his position. Let's say he takes a third of that out, and he reduces his Railtown down to 100,000 shares, just so he has 21 grand to play with the stocks that you guys destroy. Well, it may or may not work. And if I'm correct, he's going to be pissed off because his 21 grand would have been better off in Railtown. But here's my real point. If he just stays in his Railtown with 150 grand, and if it goes to let's say it goes somewhere between 750 and 1250 by January. Let's call it $10, and you can adjust it however you want. That means that Eric will have $1.5 million value in his account. I don't think he should sell. But at that point, if he wanted to use 21 grand to play, and those stock, there'll be other stocks at that time. There's no shortage of manipulated stocks. He could even just borrow against his account. It would represent 1.5% of the equity in his account to go play with that same 21 grand instead of a third of his account today. So I think the best strategy for people, and I appreciate that you've made it clear, they should steer away from your the stocks that you target, Wall Street Wolfie, because they can't win. They can't win. And it doesn't matter how much you make fun of me. The reason those stocks don't work is you guys own the street. You own the waterfront. You cover the waterfront, as Johnny Lee Hooker might say. So don't play it. Be in Railtown. Let Railtown go to 10, and then take 1% of your account, and then you can go play these other Charm Boy stocks that Wall Street Wolfie's going to take from you anyway. I'm not going to be recommending them, but you can throw a little. With 1% of your account will equal a third of your account today in the example I gave. The best strategy going forward, own Railtown. When your account's big, you can play with a little bit. That little bit is probably going to be equivalent or more than your account is today. So Wall Street Wolfie is making it clear to you there are gigantic risks if you play in the manipulated Charm Boy stocks, because Wall Street Wolfie is there to have some fun with you and take away your money. So it's a good thing, Wall Street, that you came here to warn people. It's a good thing. DMAC, hi, William, another day closer to something good. I agree with that. I think it is closer. And if I had to pick the day, 7 days. We gotta wait 1 week. Tuesday next week. When the attorneys come back from their break on the weekend, they'll get it out Monday night, or they'll be too tired. They'll get it out Tuesday, probably after the market closes on Tuesday. And then we don't have to deal with the attorneys anymore. It's all over with. They had their fun. They had their power. They had their 10 months, 11 months, 12 months. And we can get back to making money. And it should be fun, DMAC. By next week. I don't think you're going to get it at this price anymore. Yeah. Do you see that statement, by next week? I said, I don't think. I didn't promise it. I said, I don't think. And my projections were always based that someday the deal's going to be done and revenue's going to be, and I stand by it by next week. I don't know about it being next week, but I will say, using your term, by next week, AIP deal will be finito by next week and disclosed to us. That'll happen by next week, sure. And then I think by next week, maybe the following week, I think you're going to start seeing the buying in the stock that has been built up. I think a lot of the buyers could not purchase the stock until this deal was finalized. That comes by Tuesday, so by next week. And I would say your quote of me, very similar to what I'd say now. I think after the AIP deal is disclosed to everyone and revenues are being described and become believable, I don't think you're going to be able to buy the stock at these prices anymore. But I'm glad you show yourself, even though you use a fake name by next week, because this is the risk people have in all of these stocks down here. You guys crush it. You work as a team, you collude, you ridicule, and you have fun with retail. People should not be buying these stocks. Railtown has been in a stall mode. There's no question about it. My opinion, it's the attorneys. But it's coming to an end. It's coming to an end. So I'm glad you make fun of me. I don't like it, but you make fun of me because it highlights the risk people take listening to the latest Charm Boy stock. For how long? By next week. I don't know. How long are you going to use that name by next week? Are you going to be around here when the stock's $5? Or are you going to move on to another board? Are you going to come in when it's $10 and make fun of me? No, you'll be gone. So I appreciate by next week that you're here as proof positive that people shouldn't invest in the over-the-counter market stocks that are manipulated, because you're here to steal the money, and your presence here shows that it's a dangerous game. Even if people think they're getting hot information over Twitter, which I don't see how that's possible, from the Charm Boys, people shouldn't be playing, because you're there to steal their money and ridicule and make it an emotional trade rather than a well-studied due diligence trade like Railtown is. The reason Railtown is flat on its trajectory for the last, well, in June it was 22 cents. So in fairness, it's essentially doubled from the lows in June. But the reason it's been in this limbo, this long period, is you guys. You guys are shorting stock, and the attorneys have kept the company can't say anything. So that's all coming to an end. But thank you for by next week for highlighting the risks people take to so-called invest in these other stocks. It's all gambling, and if you stay at it long enough, you're going to lose everything to buy next week. Buy next week says that I am holding quite a lot of GTI on Logic. Should I average down? Well, you're not holding any. So your question is like multiplying by infinity. It's ridiculous. But no, GTII is worthless, and GTII will remain worthless. There will never be a squeeze in GTII. And if the CEO that's currently being considered to come in and pick up the corpus of GTII does in fact take it, even though there's better deals out for him, he already has everybody's names. He doesn't need to take this heavily encumbered shell. He can go somewhere else. But if he were to do GTII, he'd have to, money would come in to look out for the whales that provided the capital for the attorneys, for the discovery, for the filings, etc. And they would have to bring in capital for the business plan. At that time, there will be an offering. I would guess it'll be offered to all shareholders. And at that time, by next week, maybe you can study that offering and you can make your own judgment if you want to enter into GTII at that time, which would be called, I don't know, Online Trading LLC, whatever, Blue Water Online, whatever it's going to be called. Then you can make a decision. But no, you shouldn't buy. You should buy zero. You should not be buying GTII at all. It's a stupid thing to buy. That thing is gone to meet its maker. And Logic, no, you shouldn't buy any Logic. Logic was a sting job by you and your ilk. I think Brent made a stupid decision at the end. But it's, you can blame the CEOs, but it's really you guys. I think you guys working with Aubrey Advisors and Chadron Financial and the attorneys surrounding it. You guys set up a sting operation 2.5, 3 years ago. And I think you guys took $200 million out of the market. And I don't know if the CEO, Peter Boards, was in on it. He went away without a peep. And now the majority holder of Collective Audience was Aubrey Advisors, but now they got a guy named Greenberg out of Connecticut in there. And Logic is controlled by a company that was set up at the same time as the Data Logic SPAC by a guy that speaks Russian, Hebrew, I think German, English, obviously, and maybe Spanish. I can't remember. And he lives in Geneva and he's from Iran. There's a larger population. I don't know if it's larger than in Israel, but it's almost as large as in Israel of Jewish people living in Iran, in peace, by the way. So anyway, I believe by next week that Logic was the target of one of your sting operations. And, you know, you can be an asshole and be a smart aleck and come here to brag, but the money you stole, it didn't take skill. It just took implementing an illegal plan on behalf of your paymasters, the hedge funds and the offshore funds. And you guys got so much money, you own the attorneys and et cetera. We've been through the story. So again, by next week, I think it's terrific that you're pointing out to people what kind of scum they're competing against, and the fact that it's really foolish to buy any of the stocks in this over-the-counter area. Remember, Railtown's not an over-the-counter stock. Railtown is a Canadian stock who opened trading in the United States in the over-the-counter in order initially thinking they'd come get capital from you suckers. But you know what? They don't need it. So all of your taunting, all of your meanness and ridicule really redounds on you. And it highlights the fact that in Railtown, you're trapped, because Railtown's not going to do a toxic note in the United States or in Canada. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So Ratza Ruck with your erection. Jack Hamilton, good afternoon. Good afternoon to Donna. Donna says, hey, Jack. Josh Moore said, what happened to GTII? Well, GTII was always a piece of shit company. I don't know if you were in it, Josh, but if you were, you'd know the story. The company traded for pennies, and the CEO is a guy named Reichman. He entered into a toxic convertible note with a couple of guys named Kramer, whose clients from Long Island all had similar last names. I don't remember all of them. One guy's first name was Leo. And it was something like a $60 million convertible note, but they only issued part of it up front, and it was at a discount. And Reichman bought it back. That was in, I don't know, November of a given year. Reichman bought it back in the first quarter, paying all the penalties. But by that time, Josh, you guys had shorted something like 50 million shares of the stock, bringing it down, with which to finance each tranche of Reichman's deal with the Kramers. Somewhere along that line, Ham got in front of it, and Ham thought this was the next squeeze story, and the stock went from I don't know, 9 cents, something like that, to as high as $4 all in one whoosh. It might have first gone to 220 and pulled back, then to 440, then pulled back. And I really think I was a little bit of a sucker believing that Wall Street still cared about following the law and covering failed to deliver, failed to settle shares. So when GTII went to 898, I didn't sell because I believed Ham, and I'm not blaming Ham, by the way, and I believed that Wall Street would come in and cover those shares. Obviously, a short squeeze was going on. But I think, Josh, what happened is you guys got a hold of Frank Benedetto and this other guy. I'm not going to say his name. He's dead. And Cindy Lou gets offended that I even point out that a guy did something while he was alive, whether or not he knew it. Now he's dead. You can't point it out. I don't know the logic of that. But two guys came out to tell the story. Get out of GTII, get into COSM, because COSM was going to change its symbol, change its QSIP. The CEO was talking to him, and the CEO was not going to do a toxic deal. The CEO wasn't going to do a reverse split. And the story was amazing. The CEO had contracts, which if they got funded, they could deliver medical and drugs into pharmacies into Europe. I mean, this was the most incredible story, and it was going to be a short squeeze. There was a large position. So everybody got out. Josh, you and your friends ignited it. And I don't blame the guy who died at all, because he didn't know better, I don't think. And if he didn't do it, someone else would. The CEO at COSM got $35 million. And so anyway, you guys stopped the squeeze in GTII that day, and it opened at 4 or 5, and it went downward from there. And there was a lot of intrigue in the palace. Reichman came back to show his glorious, overinflated ego, and he didn't know what he was doing. But I think what he came back to do, according to filings, is make sure that his daughter got money, charities got money, he could drive a Rolls Royce, as I understand the filings. And so there was some graft going on, apparently. He hired, I think with your help, he hired a guy out of a hedge fund that does derivatives to take over the company. So I think you guys, and then Alpine came in and took over the short position. Alpine filed a lawsuit down in Florida to question the very existence of the United States government, basically. And then that got nowhere, so they transferred it to DC, or it got partly somewhere, transferred it to DC. Time went by. Your friends were able to move the trades offshore where there's no record keeping. The stock went down into nothingness. You guys were able to take money out of your prime brokers' accounts without paying any taxes. And that's what happened to GTII. But thanks, Josh, for coming and making fun of it again. It highlights my recommendation that people don't do any stocks that the charm boys come in and promote, because all of it's to get the stocks up while you guys short it and try to convince the CEOs to do toxic convertible notes. If it gets in trouble and there's some sort of squeeze, you have fail-safe mechanisms to drive it back down, and it's a hopeless situation. If people are disciplined enough to make money, they should walk away with that profit. Because if they stay at the game long enough, you're going to steal everything. I really appreciate that you come in to highlight what a sleazebag, evil person you're behaving like. I'm sure you're a good person in your real life, and we should show charity toward you, and I do. But I think people here have to be warned off of these kind of stocks. The way out is Railtown. Once Railtown goes 20x, 30x, whatever, people can take a little sliver and come try to compete with you. But Josh, you have everything on your side. Ridicule, fake names, money from hedge funds, attorneys, bribing Congress, bribing regulators, whether it's real cash or not. It's the idea they get the job at the law firm, for example. You have the attorneys behind you. You have the entire system on your side. In fact, the government doesn't realize that you take trillions of dollars out to Europe without paying taxes, and then you ask the government to bomb 7 countries in the Middle East on your behalf, whilst you get free place to escape, and you get free health care and free education, and life's a charm. I don't want to fight it anymore. I congratulate you, Josh, on your exceptional strategy. But remember, it's not skill. It's not skill. It's just cheating. And it's just thieving and stealing. And all your huffing and puffery and arrogance can't hide the fact that all you're doing is stealing. I'm sure you're better than that. And I'm sure that should you decide to change your ways, you could help people, and the better part of you could come out. You could be less greedy, less acquisitive, and you could help people make money rather than this current phase of your life of stealing money. But again, just like the other names, what you've done is highlighted my point. Railtown's the way out. Stay away from the Charm Boy stocks. GTI was a Ham recommendation, and Ham, I think, recommended it for a long time. I became what I thought was very clear, Josh, 2 Augusts ago, or was it 3, telling people to take time. I really thought people could read what I was saying. That's why this time, Josh, I'm being specific and clear. I never thought it would take from June till now, but every single day I strike one chord. Buy Railtown. Focus on Railtown. Put all of the money that's in any of these Charm Boy stocks where people like you come and pick pockets and even knock people over the head to take everything. Take all that money out and put it all in Railtown. I'm being clear as I can be. There's only one thing to do. Buy Railtown. When that goes up, after this long delay, which will end, I think, in 1 week's time, if people want to come down and try to outsmart you, they can. But it's easy to outsmart you. You have very limited strategy. The problem is if there's 24 variables, you control them all. You control 20. If there's 25, you control 24 variables. There's only one variable, which is the unknowable, that people count on. The promoting from the Charm Boys, that maybe a squeeze comes in. But I'll tell you what, Josh, GTII is dead, and you should not. What happened to it? What happened to GTII is you. Josh Moore. Josh, you do yourself a disservice to lie. You don't have to be a liar. I know you have integrity. I know you're capable of telling the truth. My shares are locked up. I called Schwab. They said they aren't sure what's going on with it, yet it's still trading volume. How is this possible? Well, number one, Josh, only you can make the decision to be an honest man. But I will answer for other people out there. The stock is trading on the expert market. The expert market was created by you and your friends to confuse judges, to give them cover for when your friends, the attorney, come up with a settlement based on a quote off the expert market. The judge can say, boom, expert market, that must be good. But the expert market is designed to fleece. It's to finish the job because there's no bid and ask. There's no true market. The bid and ask that's shown is unsolicited, or put it another way, if someone wants to show it, they show it. But it's a bigger scam than what you started right away. So the trading is to get you trapped. I don't know if Schwab will sell your shares. That's up to you and Schwab. I know at Morgan Stanley E-Trade, they won't let me sell my shares. They say that the stock is under attack by guys like you. They don't use that wording, but they won't even trade it. They say take it, register it elsewhere. Well, it's too expensive. You win, Josh. You don't have to come here and brag. You guys won. You destroyed the entire market cap of GTII, and you won. You don't need to brag. I don't even want to fight you. So you don't have to lie. It's possible because you guys control all the levers of manipulation and criminality in GTII. And that, I've said about as much as I want to say. And G can't buy or sell. Well, great. Lucky for you, you can't buy or sell GTII. You shouldn't be buying it. Some people here sold their GTII up at 20 cents and bought Railtown at 30 cents. Bravo for them. But Josh, you're obviously prevaricating. You're a better man than that. And I'm sure you've got other positions you can focus on. Too bad they're all short positions. Josh, you're the shorts won in GTI. Absolutely, you're got it exactly right. You are holding toilet paper, nothing more. I agree with you, Well said. Buy next week. William, why is saying it's toilet paper? He's disrespect all of us and you. No, he's not. He's right. He's telling the truth. You should try it sometime. Kenneth Martin, I love your story. It's a good story. And that's what's coming. That's what's coming. Buy next week. Wasn't GTI and Logic? Logic is misspelled, by the way. Touted here for so long and we all banded in to buy as much? No. GTII, to use the word you use, I don't agree with it, was touted by him and on his calls for a long time. And he started suggesting to people to listen to Richard Hoffman, I don't know, about a year after I started warning people out of GTII. But you know what? People didn't get, you got to hit people over the head with your message. And if I had it to do over again, I probably should have just said, hey, to be clear, I'm suggesting you sell your GTII. But I couched it in, there's palace intrigue, there's trouble at the corporate level, there's you should be taking tax losses, all of that. So I probably could have done a better job with my message, but I tried. But him, about a year later, started saying, if you want to hear about GTII, go talk to Richard. Logic, I didn't tout. but I did give it as an alternative. I'm not going to bore people by next week. You obviously were here, so you heard it. But a, a guy I no longer speak with, not because he's a bad guy, he just stopped speaking to me. But he had years of experience on the American Stock Exchange, high up, high up, and he knows the SEC people directly and all that. And he really was convinced. And I went up, I did my due diligence, I met face to face more than once with Brent's son, who ran Logic. And this guy was convinced that the Data Logic SPAC and Logic was going to work, and there were systems in place and all that. I got very upset by next week when you guys did a financing that was obviously, to me, treacherous. And I let this guy know at the American Stock, he's retired. I said, that stock's going under $1. You don't know what you're doing. There's systems in place. And I fought it. I got in there. But people were either blind and they couldn't see, or they were paid off. They were part of it. And so the board at what became known as Collective Audience went down the pathway to hell, which is non-existence. A guy named Greenberg, you might know Greenberg, bought the company, and Aubrey Advisors bought the rest. It's shit. And then Logic, what Brent, Logic, what Brent did was he announced in the public space that he was going to take the shell and reverse it into $1 billion worth of companies. It was about 7 companies. But you guys always get, you've got miraculous ways of screwing the pooch. And you got to him, and he was worn out. And he took the first deal he saw for some cash to pay for filings. And so it wasn't 8 companies, it was 1 company. And it was 1 company which was founded at the same time the Data Logic SPAC was set up. And it's all, I'm sorry to say, it's all men of a similar characteristic. It's clear to me that it was a setup from the start. And so, are you here to brag by next week? Because I congratulate you on your theft. You're like the people that stole from the Louvre. I hope you got away with it better than they did. But you don't need to brag. You win. I congratulate you. I congratulate you. Again, you're reminding everyone the essence of my argument. Stop playing any of those stocks. Buy Railtown and change your life. Get away from guys like you. Hey, Steve. How are you? Red Pepper Ronnie, good to see you, sir. MM says, buy next week, or laughing my ass off. Brandon Neely, I sold all my stock and some cattle to acquire my 143. That's a good position, Brandon. You're gonna be happy with it. I want to make sure I have that recorded, because I might not. I tried the stupid spreadsheet. I gave up. I'm gonna have to Google how to fix a spreadsheet. I will. I'll do it. But I didn't do it. Uh, 143. That's a great position. It's a great position. Yeah. One you sold were your call options in Wolf, which expired November, kind of sick. Yeah, I understand that, Brandon. I have a couple friends that sold Wolf unrelated to this, and what finally got Wolf working and getting it out of the maw of Rubenstein, who I think worked at um, what's the name of that capital place? Um, anyway, whatever that capital firm that they took the toxic financing from. What really got it going was the AI revolution and the uh, need for energy. So that's what allowed, despite all the destruction by the capital firm, it's not Worthington Capital, Western, I can't remember the name of the firm, crooked as hell. Um, so that's what allowed finally for Railtown to break above all of their shenanigans. But they may or may not be out of the woods. I too have watched, Brandon, with a great deal of nausea, that my favorite trade, silver, more than doubled. And we've been kind of just sitting here. So I understand what you're going through, but you can't be perfect. You can't be perfect uh, in the trade. So what I say to myself, I'm just glad with my position. Once it moves, let's see the lay of the land. You don't know. Wolf could be back down to 10. On the other hand, Wolf could be 18. And when your account is more solid, you buy some shares. I don't know how many calls you had, but maybe on margin, and I'm not saying heavily, you buy some shares of Wolf and you sell calls against it until you make back what you could have made on those calls. So what you're looking for, Brandon, is the flexibility that a larger equity in your account will give you. And you can quantify in your head, I missed out on X amount profit because I sold Wolf calls too soon, which happens, by the way. But you can come up with a number, and maybe later on, we'll buy ice cream. Later on, uh, maybe in a few months, maybe once again, it's my story. Once Railtown is bought by Microsoft and you have a substantial account, you can go dabble in Wolf again, owning the shares, sell the calls, maybe buy some long-term puts for protection, and then sell the short calls every month until you bring in enough capital to pay the interest and to make back the money you feel like you lost. And it's a partial answer, because what's bugging you is you could have waited to sell the Wolf calls and then buy more Railtown. And I look at it, I say, darn it. What if I just stuck to my guns with silver and it doubled, and then I sold it and I could buy twice as much Railtown? But that's the clarity of looking backwards. I did not know, and I suggest to you I could not have known, that the attorneys were going to take essentially a year to draw up a 102-page document between two parties that were chomping on the bit to get the deal done, and a 4-page assent notice, and they would wait. And maybe it's procedural that they had to wait. I don't know what goes on in Canada, but they would wait to have the vote afterward rather than before. I don't know what goes on in these attorneys' minds. It wasn't haste. It wasn't making money for shareholders. It was something else up in that mind. I don't know what it was. But there's no question, Brandon, that my story's different than yours. It's a different position. But I think all of us can look back and say, darn it, if we had known that to draw up an agreement between friendly parties, which we say we've done before, we're partners and we've got skills, and it's going to take 10, 11, 12 months to get it accomplished. I don't know why we're smiling on the websites of our respective law firms. We should be embarrassed. But anyway, that's unfortunately, I look back and Brandon, it's true. I could have traded it differently and I'd have a bigger position of Railtown. On the other hand, I might have stepped in it and purchased MTEN when a friend of mine saying, hey, it's going to go. There's a billionaire behind it, and it was like $26. Or I could have purchased, I did buy some G-Bucks when Ham was saying it's going to 150. I'm not saying he didn't do it with best intentions, but it's now 19 cents. So I also could have stepped in it. So Brandon, what I do to myself so I don't go crazy, I just say I'm glad to have what I have. And it's not as much if I were still a big account guy, a big swinging dude guy. But on the other hand, if it works, I get back to having, not as big as these guys, not as big as Eric or Donna or you, but I get back to having a significant account, and then I can start doing other things, or I can say, you know what, I do not want to ever hear an over-the-counter stock story again. I want to start putting my money in mining stocks, in oil and gas stocks. I want to put them in the private transactions with oil companies that give me income and growing income that protects me from the collapse of the dollar potentially and inflation. I want to start doing things that I'm not exposed to the criminality. I want to be intelligent if my account gets to some sort of significance. That's how I rationalize it. But there's no question, Brandon, if you choose to focus on it, it can be quite depressing what you could have done. But the fact is, and from every indication I was hearing, by the way, and I do make a lot of phone calls, the fact is, many people anticipated that the AIP deal was imminently closing 90 days ago, 120 days ago. I simply cannot explain, other than the reasons that I've given already, and in some ways they can probably be said to be mean-spirited. I don't mean them to be. I'm sure the people on those teams at the law firms did the best they could. But it's just a difference in perspective in how they see their responsibility and their job, and how what I come from, which is production, not, operational. So it's just a different outlook. And their side, in their defense, Brandon, I think they did do, other than some confusion in the terms, I think the documents that they drew up are pretty solid. You're going to need that. Not pretty solid. I think they are solid. I'm not an attorney, but you're going to need that if, in my example, Microsoft comes and buys Railtown. You're going to want the paperwork that they drew up to take the weight of the examination of the Microsoft team. And I think it looks like they did that. So, not everything is all bad. They took their time, as attorneys are wont to do, and I think they created documents that the future transaction can rely on. And that's all attorneys do. That's exactly what attorneys do. Build documents. That's all they do. And I think the documents are pretty good here. Late, okay. A little confusing, okay. But once the deal closes on Friday, I think these documents are really airtight with my limited ability to understand legal documents. Sold for 60 cents. Wow. 320 of those calls. So one thing you could have done is sell a few of them, you know. Look, Brandon, I've made those mistakes. Even now I make them. But one way to avoid that regret when you have 320 calls, make a plan. I'm going to sell with 320 divided by what, 6? I'm going to sell a sixth of my position every week for the next 6 weeks, or every 2 weeks for the next 12 weeks. And that's one way that doesn't happen to you. If it helps at all, I think I would have done it the way you did it, because it's easy to look back now. Railtown's been flat, but we didn't know that. If the attorneys had gotten the documents out, I believe that Railtown has been and remains ready to start talking about an enormous backlog of enterprise sales agreements, pending enterprise sales agreements. And so what you did very easily could have looked like a great decision, or at least a push on that portion of it. Remember, the calls do expire. But I guess in retrospect, Brandon, I didn't know you had that many, but in retrospect, we all could have figured out that the power needs of the data centers would lead to a resurgence in demand for nuclear power. I guess we could have made that assumption, but we wouldn't have known that it could come in by November. The good thing about Railtown, it won't expire. So if you sold your 320 for 60 cents, I'll take the assumption that you got, I don't know, I can't figure it out, 320 times 0.6. I guess you got 64,000 you got a third of your position roughly from selling those calls, and you could have bought more. But if I'm right, 60,000 shares, if 60,000 shares goes to, $20 over the next few months, that's 1.2 million. Yeah, if you had done it better, you'd have more. But on the other hand, over $1 million is nice. That's how I'm talking to myself. I don't know if I'll have that much at $20, but and it's, for me, it's IRA money primarily. But I don't know, Brandon. I don't know if I'm helping or pouring salt in the wound. I feel for you. I feel for you. It's easy to look back and say we would have made the right decisions too, or we might not have. We might not have. But yeah, that's a shame. I know somebody that owned a ton of wolf, and if he had just hung on to it, his life would be changed. So, Brandon, I'm some. I understand. Um, I'm trusting in you. Did what you said and sold everything I had. Well, everything in the speculative space. I didn't know you had 320 calls on Wolf. Um, if it had been me, I might have only sold 120 of those calls, or maybe half of them initially. But I wasn't in the trade. But if I bought that many calls, it would have been because I believed something was going to happen. So I'd be reluctant to get out of all of them. But I didn't know that situation. And that's why I can't give specific advice. So I'm not owning that I gave you specific advice. I can't do that. But I think the other stocks that you sold, I don't know what, you don't talk about those. I wonder how they're doing. Um, I can give you my example. I sold my position in GDC, and I was so afraid it was going to squeeze, Brandon. I could be sitting here today, and my position in GDC went to 150 like Cam was projecting. But I just said I've got just as much chance at that kind of squeeze upside in Railton. I hope it doesn't happen as a squeeze, but I have a higher probability of success. So it's good to look back and say, hey, I would have made that money. But obviously you weren't 100% convinced that Wolf was going to have the run it has now had in this time frame. And I have nothing to go on because I wasn't in the trade, so I don't know what I would have thought. But I would guess the probability of Wolf going to 16 may not have been very high because Yorkville Advisors, is that the name? They crushed it every time the stock was up. So I think it was a reasonable, just because it didn't work out in retrospect, doesn't mean it was a bad decision on your part. But I sold GDC, I think at $5.20. I'll have to look it up. I didn't have a lot of it, of course, but not GDC. G-Bucks, G-Bucks, G-Bucks. And now it's 20 cents. So for every story that is out there on a trade, there's also stories that go the other way. And so when you trade, there's no guarantee of the results. And there's no assurance that my strategy is going to work in each and every stock. But as a general concept, and I don't know your other position, but as a general concept, I think it worked out okay. And the story's not over. You're worn out, Brandon. I understand it. Let's see what Wolf is doing. I mean, it finally breaks out. There's no way 1660 and the options You had the November. I assume the November 25s, November 28s. I'm going to assume you had the November. Actually, probably you had the November 14s. I'm guessing. And I mean, there's two others, so the strike price might be higher now. Unfortunately, I can't see what the 11s. Oh, November 21, you said it. Well, there aren't any. November 25 are the ones. There's a lot of premium on the calls right now. I don't think there would be $2 premium on your calls. I think they'd be trading closer to flat. So say it's around 17. I can't see. You can see. So 17 minus 11. They might be trading for $6. I don't know what the bid is. So right now you sold them for 60 cents. If you had waited, you could sell them for $6 and you could buy Railtown back. Let me look at the chart. I really was talking about stocks. I didn't know you had an option position. Options are a little bit trickier. Let's see. You sold it. You probably sold it in June or July. And you lost some because in July, August, the stock went from $4 to $5. So you probably made a profit at 60 cents, by the way. But in at the beginning of September, that stock jumped from 550 to $7, and it hasn't really stopped since. There was a bit of a pullback. That's all. I wonder what's in the news. I would argue we didn't know that was coming. And if you had believed in it, you probably would have stayed with it. Let me look up Wolf News. So they've just extended a $9 billion deal. So they're on their way now. They are definitely on their way. I don't see the news, darn it. There's so much news. It's hard to go back to September. There's news every day. So I don't know what happened in August or September specifically to Wolf, but in general, nuclear power is having a recovery big time. There's so much news. Jones Research reiterates buy on TeraWolf. A lot of research. So they got out of the maw of Yorkville Advisors. So Google bought into the company 2 months ago. That's probably what it is. Google bought into the company. Look, I'm apologize to you, Brandon. I don't think I would have sold all those calls. I might have. I don't know why you owned them. Depending on the reason you owned them, I might not have sold any of them. Calls are a little different than stock. But having said that, it's okay. It's okay. I think you're going to make Wolf right now is $16. You don't have 300. It's true. You don't have 320 calls of Bitcoin. Sorry, of Railtown. But I think Railtown will be $16. You'll be okay. You'll be okay. And I think your position is great. By the way, I don't think Railtown's going to stop at $16 either. I really don't. So I think you'll make, depending on how long you stay in it, depending on how it plays out, it might be a push on that trade, that part of the trade. Yes, you'll look back and say, I could have owned more. But you might not have waited until Google bought in. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's tough. That's trading, and it's tough. All right, Brandon, you added 11.5. That's awesome. That is awesome. So you now have 154. That's a great position. You're going to be happy, Brandon. You're going to be happy. In my judgment, you're going to be happy, and it'll start soon. It'll start soon. Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. Lois Shotland. Oh, you bought some more. Good for you, Lois. Wow, you guys are all. I'm going to have to call all of you, sir. Brandon, I kicked myself, by the way. You know, with that, I kicked myself about so many things that I could have done differently over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And I would have 1 million shares of Railtown. But it drives you crazy. So you just got to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm thankful for what I have. 11.4. You're good for you, Brandon. I love it. I love that you're taking action. Wall Street, Wolfie, if you're here to brag, please just don't lie. Just don't lie. I kind of don't like that you're here to brag, but if you are, you feel like you need to pound your chest. We all agree you stole a lot of money. You did a great job, but you never owned GTII or Logic or Finger, and it didn't kill your portfolio. All 3 of those probably made you a lot of money, whether it was by kickbacks or by the stock you sold that you covered or you've never covered. So Wall Street, I think you'd come across to me better if you weren't lying, but whatever. Innocence 1. William, long time. I hope all is well, and hello to all. William, I know investing is risk. I have almost 1,000-ish with Railtown, but what's the difference? Once more, this and other ones in past. I just went through that in a sense. I've just gone through it. I don't think I need to go through it again. But if I had to say it in 2 sentences, Railtown has the wind behind its back. You're able to buy a stock because of the circumstances whereby the attorneys and the regulatory process requires the company to say nothing. So there's been an absence of big buyers, and there's also been you guys shorting the stock. People are able to buy almost unlimited shares really inexpensively. And I know you don't spend time looking into the fundamentals on the stocks you short, but Railtown is a Canadian company. If in the AI, let's call it 2.0 space, they're first to market, best in class. They have a huge beta customer base. They, I believe, have revenues. They were just asked to be by the guys that founded AIP, who were no slouches. They were just asked to buy AIP. These guys were so impressed with Railtown. So my guess is Railtown is, if it were trading in the private pipeline channel of Wall Street, my guess is Railtown should be worth 1 to 1.5 billion right now. And in those numbers, it's a 20x. So that's the difference. The other stocks that you guys shorted and manipulated didn't really have fundamental stories other than a potential short squeeze. And Wall Street doesn't allow short squeezes to happen. Good for you, Brandon. When Railtown is 40, I'll be all smiles. Bravo, Brandon. I will be too. Your smile will be bigger, but I hope everyone is smiling at that point. It's not going to be a straight line, and it may take longer than I've projected. But I guess I've started emphasizing, Brandon, the upside and the fact that a buyout is a very likely possibility. I think I've been highlighting that because I cannot get it out of my mind that it won't happen quickly. Why? Because if they wait, the metrics can change, the market can change, the availability of money for, let's say, Microsoft to buy might change. Now's the time to act. And I don't think it's entirely impossible that something won't happen by the end of the year. But I think because of the delays, which I attribute to legal, caution, I think it's more likely that something happens in the first or second quarter next year. And I really think if they can get a pathway to revenue out there, they may not control the pace of a buyout. If they don't want to dance with the with the buyers may come knocking anyway. So I think you're going to see your $40. Nothing's guaranteed, but I think you're going to see your $40. And that's what I have some things that I get literally, Brandon. I'm not going to go through them, but I could, if I had just done that, or if I hadn't done, or what, and then I add up how many shares of Railtown I have. It can drive me crazy. So I just have to let it go and be grateful. And I am. I just am grateful that I have a chance at the modest amount I have to get back in the game, and then I'll see where it goes from there. And I'm very happy for you, Brandon, and uh, who else was it? Lewis Shotland. I'm just amazed. These positions are just incredible. I'm just these 100,000, 150,000, 200,000, just amazing. And I couldn't be happy for each of you. I just really couldn't be happier. IPS 71, Innocence 1. Once more, no blame. Just trying to get the key points on Rail just to refresh my memory on Railtown. I was one of those that got in early when you mentioned 60 cent, but trying to see if I can get to 2,000. Good for you, Innes. I would try. At the risk of that other guy ridiculing me, I don't know how many more days you have. My guess is you have today, tomorrow, Friday, Monday. But you might have all the next week too, but at some point, this stock price is going to start going up and it won't come back. And that guy can make fun of me all he wants, but I don't see him out there trying to create a scenario where people can actually make money. I just see him out there ridiculing. So I'll leave it at that. Brandon Neely, it's hard to make decisions to go all on a stock when none of us know the unknown. Well, that's true. But I think all in is the right way with Railtown. I didn't know you owned calls. See, the thing about calls is leverage. And it's a beautiful thing. I don't know. You had the 11s. The stock was 5 when you sold. It's not a bad decision because the stock could have gone back down to 2. It just went the other way. So I don't know. I don't know why you bought the calls, but if I purchased the calls at 11, I guess I must have been thinking it was going to run. Maybe what I would have done is sold the 11s and I don't know, bought 100 of whatever was lower, closer to the strike price. I don't know. Brandon, the calls were risky. And what made the stock go up that I quickly see is that Google bought into it. There ain't no short at Yorkville Advisors who's going to fight Google. Who could have predicted that? Justin Babish, it will be fun to read press reports about what other AIP member companies are doing once the merger is settled. Absolutely. I think that will be fun. We got 10 minutes to go. It's 42.97, 42.96 to 43.5. The stock closed at 43.6. It's not going to go into the green probably today. Opened at 44, but maybe. So G-Bucks you sold, you're ahead on that, but not to that leverage. Finger, you're probably okay on that, but not to that leverage. It's all good. I know, Brandon. I could, as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking of this different scenarios in my head. Like, what if I hadn't lost 120 grand that weekend going and flitting around that movie deal under the pressure of the gun? And assume I didn't lose it somewhere else. I had it 120 grand and I bought Railtown at the same average price of 35 cents that I got. I'd have 340,000 shares. And I could drive myself crazy, Brendan. But instead, I've got to be thankful for what I have. because it could be worse. So I am grateful. I really am. So I try not to think about that. Man, that's pounceable, isn't it? Richard K. Brandon, we'll be smiling 4 to 40. We need surgery to get the grin on. Yeah. Brandon, I unloaded all my stocks in August, but I bought those calls in August after the first pump. I see. Okay. Well, my overall game plan, I guess, is just to get away from these high risk, hot money deals, because Railtown, we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it yet. That announcement that was filed dated October 6th, whenever it came out, that was kind of an LOI. It really wasn't the final acquisition. So we haven't seen the final yet, and we haven't seen revenue discussed, and we haven't seen the company out telling the story. So therefore, we haven't seen the buying, which I tried to describe to you, a quite believable scenario about major buyers coming into Railtown. So Brandon, I see Railtown as a much bigger story than it was. And I see it as a high probability story, where these other things, they're high risk. If they work, it's easy to look back and say, oh, I could have. But what was the probability of it working at the time? Nobody knew. And I just don't know. You're going to be happy. I think you'll be happy. Let's watch the stock right now. I really believe there's people that disagree with me because the company looks like they don't know what the heck they're doing. The team looks overmatched. They look like Keystone Cops, whatever I hear from people. I don't see it that way. I think all you need to know about Corey and Marwan, they had the genius to sit down 6 years ago and plan ahead. They had the experience of 2 or 3 decades to know exactly what problem to solve. And then they had the skill to build a team to implement their plan. And they did it early. And on top of that, from the presentations he gives, they called up Microsoft. Now, what they say about it is Microsoft was impressed and they joined the Microsoft channel. But I would imagine that conversation got a little bit more involved than that. Hey, dude, have you ever heard of anybody doing this kind of thing? Are you doing it? Would you be interested if we solved it? Those kind of questions. So I really think the management at Railtown is exceptional just for their genius and their execution on the software side. I don't know how anyone navigates the world of going public or raising money in the corrupt North American markets at all. It's if you're a small company in the destroyed markets of Adina Friedman and Charlie Crawwell, it's just not going to work. Even Yorkville Advisors, they destroyed Wolf. Wolf is the same company at 16 that it was at 60 cents. By the way, Brandon, I owned 20,000 shares of Wolf. I don't know, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. What the hell? I even think I sold it at a small loss, 80 cents or something. It's just a hard game to win. And that's why I think Railtown is a better place to place the money. You don't have to be a trading genius. You don't have to worry. If Railtown were to go to $5 in 2 weeks, you don't have to sell. I mean, if you want to be some hotshot and you sell and you get lucky, you buy it back. If it pulls back to 375, it's just luck. It's just luck. Better strategy is just hold on to it. Just hold on to it. And if the story changes, then we got to be adept at that. But I think, Brandon, you're going to build a substantial account. That's an amazing amount of shares. Absolutely amazing amount of shares. And same with everybody here. Innocence. I have some shares, options that expire this week. What is BYND? That's the hot stock. Beyond something beyond. Well, you're a day trader for sure. You can add to Railtown. I hope it works. Again, that guy made fun of me, and I guess it's fair enough. But I will state again, I'm making a pretty slowpoke observation about Railtown that we're not going to see anything on the finalization of the merger until next Tuesday. There, give or take, Monday maybe. And that it's only after that that the company can do anything about revenue. But there's nothing magic in my analysis. Maybe the company is comfortable that AIP deal is going to be fine, and they start doing some revenue this week. I mean, I don't see any indication of it. We're already through Tuesday, but it could happen. So, Innocent, my point is, any day now, the stock could be priced at $1.25. And I've been saying that, I know, for weeks, if not months. And it hasn't happened yet, but it'll come, I think. All right, it's 4275. We got seconds left. 42.85 by 43.5. It looks like they're going to get the stock down by 2 cents on the day. The stock is going to close at 42.97, down 2 cents on the day. The volume all of a sudden is only 60,000. And the last trade I see is 2,000 shares at 42.97. Now I have Wolf on my screen. It's 15.98. Mountain is on my screen at 3.75. Mountain was down 57 cents today, something like that. GDC is $4.11. G-Bucks is essentially 18 cents. And that's our day. I may sign off because I've been on for a while, but let's see how those poor people are doing. Oh, gosh. Multiple people have died. We'll have to say prayers. Monster hurricane. Darn it. It did go left of that old Jones, whatever it's called, where there were a lot of people, but man. So in other words, I think it could have been worse. But man, it hit at 185. It landed at 1 p.m. So we'll say our prayers for everybody. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I don't have much more to say. One more day. We're getting closer to the time that deal is closed. and revenue will start rolling out, in my judgment. And then I think Brandon is going to be happy with his position. And yeah, I hope everybody has a good evening, and we'll talk tomorrow.